We have our first returning guest on this episode of the podcast, Captain Damon Sacco of Castafari Sport Fishing. Since we last had Damon on the show, he traveled to Mexico to fish on no tuna, no chinga, targeting monster yellowfin tuna, and we also had the entire 2021 fishing season go by up here in the Northeast. Damon is always a pleasure to talk to and collaborate with. We share some suspenseful and hysterical stories in this one, including a story about him and his crew catching a 900-pound plus blue marlin after losing an engine just after arriving to the canyons on a trip several years ago. We talk about his trip to Mexico, the 2021 Castafari season, the tournaments that Damon organized and participated in, and he goes into details about tactics for targeting giant bluefin tuna in Cape Cod Bay. Damon is also heading to fish in Colombia soon. By the time this podcast airs, he'll probably already be back, but he shares logistics for that trip and what he's anticipating on that adventure. We spend a bit of time talking about the upcoming 2022 Castafari Offshore Fishing Seminar, which is on March 5th and 6th. And that event is awesome. It's always an educational and exciting event to attend. And Damon discusses some of the new presentations on tap for this year's event and announces some of the legendary captains and fishermen that will be speaking. We hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did. Please welcome back to the podcast, Captain Damon Sacco of Castafari Sport Fishing. Welcome to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast, where we follow 3 words of wisdom. You can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last, you'll just have to keep listening. Stay tight.
Am I coming off or what? Get that down. Don't get on that rock.
Everyone usually does.
Yeah. Well, the last time we did it, I didn't realize that we were rolling. And I was dropping F-bombs like every 10 seconds.
F-bombs are encouraged.
He's like, you got a potty mouth. I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't swear once. And then I realized you guys are rolling like right out of the gate.
Yeah. That's how we get some of the best stuff, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God.
So, boys.
All right.
It's
been a year.
Time. It's been almost a year. 2 years.
What?
February 2020, right before COVID got nuts.
You know what? I was just about to go to Mexico.
Yep.
It was 2 years ago.
2 years.
And it's funny. I'm getting the F out of here in 2 days again. It's funny. I always do a podcast with you right before I'm about to get the fuck out of New England.
It's a great story to tell pre-departure.
I know. So how was your trip 2 years ago?
The trip 2 years ago was awesome. We went to Puerto Vallarta and we fished on a boat called No Tuna, No Chinga, Mexican operation. And
That should be like a radio thing.
right? What better
Like
name?
on a slow day, no tuna, no chinga.
No tuna, no chinga. And let me tell you, these guys, it's a serious operation. It's the Osuna brothers. They're like rock stars over there in Puerto Vallarta. You know, like everybody knows them. And we went out. It's like a 62 Delta, all refit. You know, it holds 8 people. We just had 4 of us. And man, we caught, I don't know, 4 or 5 cows that were like 250 plus. I think 2 fish were over 300, like just big yellowfins, like ass-kicking yellowfins. Yeah, like fish, you know, it was like giant fish and kites.
Sick.
You know, and just kite bites and 2-hour battles on stand-up. Except over there, they fish the rail, which I wasn't really used to. In fact, I'd never done it. I never fucking heard of it, actually. Rail rod fishing. Basically, you have no harness, and you tuck the rod in your armpit, and you just leverage it on the rail like a seesaw, and you just counteract the pull of the fish by using your own weight, but you just bruises like up and down the side of your like chest and arm because the rod literally is just sitting in there for 2 hours. And it's so awkward.
I've seen it. I've
yeah,
not
it doesn't look
experienced it,
fun.
but I've seen it.
It's a fucking blast once you get the hang of it, but like the first fish is just brutal because you want to keep like holding the rod just because, it's just hard to like leverage the reel, keep the reel from turning.
Yeah.
But once you get it down, like the guys who are good at it are just like, they pull fish to the boat in like 30 minutes, like real ones, like real big fish.
How much are you moving around the gunnel?
Constantly. You're lapping the boat like 3 times, bumping into people. Sometimes there's a double. And so you got one guy on the pulpit, like with a fish in a circle, finally. So he's not moving. He's just staying up there. But then you got to be like, sorry, man. And like spin your fucking fish underneath his fish. I mean, that's
cool.
It's crazy. But they were just massive fucking fish. I mean, I couldn't believe like some of the surface feeds. It was like, you'd see on Stellwagen.
That's awesome.
Just big tuna, yeah.
Starting to get a good class of yellowfin in the canyons too the last couple of years.
We sure did. This year was the first time in a long time that I've seen fish like that. That had some sickles on them and some actual size to them.
Yep. I've never seen it until the last couple of years. Honestly.
I don't think we've been alive that long.
No. I remember Frank Pitton telling me stories of you guys.
Frank Pitton, he knows.
When that size class was like those 80 plus pounders. And then we got a little glimpse of it during that fishtails bite a handful
We
of
got some
years
good
back.
ones in that tournament.
Yeah.
I got like a 95-pound fish.
Oh, the OBBC. Yeah, that's right.
2 or 3 years ago.
I remember that.
Big jumbo yellowfin.
Yep.
That was the year that like 5,000 big eye came in.
Yeah.
The buyers are like,
Christian and I will weigh in fish till like 2 a.m. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good to see though. I mean, and then the big eye population's good too.
Yeah.
It's sick.
I only got out there one time last year. You didn't get out there at all last year.
No. I'm okay with it though. I'm just like, I like catching bluefins 15 miles from home.
You like being home in your own bed
I do.
at night?
That's what that's what Sandro says. My mate, well, Billy.
Yeah.
Riley.
They were hanging out with him one night. And they're like,
shaking the table.
they're
Hey,
like,
Riley, stop.
hey,
Stop, buddy.
they were like, Sandro, you got to come out with us anytime. Damon said, open invite. And Sandro's like, I have no interest just going out 100 miles and staying out and getting my ass kicked for 2 days.
Does take something else.
It's a long way. It's a long way from home.
It is. Especially when you're on that boat.
I know.
It's like being in a fucking castle out there.
Yeah.
That Calvin Beal that they have. It's awesome.
All right, Brett, rapid fire.
All right. We've changed up the format slightly
Since last time.
since last time you were
2
on.
years ago?
Since 2 years ago.
I don't even remember 2 years ago.
I know, we don't either, but we start off with some completely random, unrelated questions, some fishing related, some non-fishing related. First answer that comes to your head, shout it out. And if we go on a tangent, no big deal. It's encouraged.
Don't mention my parole officer.
We won't. Let's see here. If money was not an object, what would you build for a sport fish boat?
Really?
Ooh. Yeah, exactly.
This is like when the mad scientist comes out. It would have to be a bayless. I mean, and the thing is, I toss and turn between going to because I have a express boat, obviously, and I've always had an express boat, and I love being down in the cockpit and just being in the action instead of being like away from everybody. However, the visibility sucks. It's so much better to be up high, and so it's like I think I'd go with a bridge boat. Big ass cabin, pimped out with the flat screens and the imported wood from Africa, and ostrich skin walls. But no, I mean it would have to be a bayless because I remember like fishing down in Cabo, I don't know, years ago, and one went whizzing by us, and I was like, I need one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw our first one in Los Sueños, I think. Tar Heel. John Bayless's boat.
That's a famous
And
boat.
there's several other ones there, obviously, as well, but those things are unbelievable.
Really unbelievable, yeah. I mean, a lot of them are, all the big battle wagons are great. Even the Vikings are building a great boat. The problem is you can't get one right now. You want a Viking, you're in line for 3 years.
Yeah.
Can't get anything.
Yeah, you can't get anything.
What about size of hull? I mean, you fished on a lot
Rye.
of... Come on, Rye.
Riley's bumping the cameras.
Yeah, Riley wants in on the action.
He's going to whine
He's
up
going to
there.
chew a hole through that one.
Now we're going to get whiny
Yeah, I don't know. Size-wise, I mean, is that the question?
Size-wise.
60, probably a 60. I mean, I have a 45 now. Definitely would like to go bigger. There's nights when we're sitting out there in a northeast breeze, 20-knot northeast, and it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a 60 plus.
It's funny, like, everyone we've asked that question, Ferruli, a couple other people, that 60-foot range seems to be the sweet spot.
I think once you get over that, they're just hard to maneuver.
Exactly. And then you need like 10 thrusters and 10 people. And see, the thing I like about my boat is I can take it out by myself. I went out, so I did a solo mission. And I don't do this much. In fact, I only went giant fishing on it once solo, and that was this fall. And it's because Rob West blew me off. and so I was like, fuck it, I'm going, because the bite was there. It was in the bay. It was like that September, early September bite. And I went out there, and Anders was there, and like I traded him some bait. He had some nice squid, and I gave him some pogies. And sure enough, I put 3 rods out. I'm like, why am I fishing 3 rods? I should fish 1 rod, because guarantee like the long rods or the short rod's going to go off, and I'm going to have to pull in the. Anyways, long story short, I do a couple drifts, and then I'm like, fuck it, I'll do 1 more drift and then get out. And so I was reeling in everything. I took the short bait out, I took the middle rod out, and as I was just about to take the long rod out, it goes off. So I got really lucky, and I fought this fish for 3.5 hours. And the fucking thing went around like 6 lobster pots. I mean, it was a nightmare by myself with the gaff. At one point I had the boat in reverse, and I was just doing this like, involuntary donut backwards. And the fucking fish was going the other way, like the complete opposite direction. And there were like people around me that were probably like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Like, where's his mate? What is he doing? Should we call the Coast Guard? Anyways, I had the friggin' thing in a circle, and I was like, I'm actually going to catch this fish. And it was a slaw. It was a really nice fish. I saw it on the surface a couple times, and I fucking pulled the hook. It was a Charlie Brown hook too, and I was like, "You got to be shitting me!" And I think I reached out to you, Taylor, right after that happened, and I was like, "What do you think of these Charlie Brown hooks?" Because I was so mad, because I love them. I think they're great hooks, but I was like, "How the fuck did that hook pull after like 3.5 hours?" But whatever, shit happens.
Hole, baby.
The involuntary donut pride and
that didn't help. And you know what? When they put the reel and free spool like 6 times to cut the lobster traps, that didn't help either. Yeah, I literally had to do that. But anyways,
that's amazing.
But my point is, I do you don't want to go too big, because then you need a whole entourage of people, and it's like it's nice to be able to. So I mean, even 60 would be overkill for me. Even like 55. You know, just that extra 10 feet. Yeah. I'd love to do some cruising when I get older and my kids are, out of the house. That's the plan.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish I could sell my boat now, but then I'd be like boatless for 5 years. Yeah. Then what do you do? Right. There's nothing out there.
Exactly.
And then you're going to pay,
an arm and a leg.
Crazy money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those boats are sweet. Those bayless boats are sweet. Fishing a tournament or running a tournament? Which do you prefer?
Oh, I definitely say fishing a tournament. I enjoy running a tournament, but I get super jealous when the bite's on fire, which it always is in my tournament. It is. It's always good. It's a good time of year, and it's just and the bite seems to die in August. Yeah. So
right after your tournament, the next week.
It usually drops out, and I feel sorry for Kyle at the Tri-State, because he's like, where the fuck did all those fish go?
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoy it. I love running events. I'd love to bring Tuna Fest back. That was a fun. You guys were part of that one or 2 years, and it's a good party atmosphere, and it's a great place for people to kind of connect and reunite. But I love fishing tournaments. I love the energy and the excitement and the competition, and just I think that supersedes probably running an event. Yeah, if I had to answer correctly.
So more or less stress, or different stress?
Total different stress. Yeah. It's definitely not less stress, because tournament fishing, I find I'm on edge. Everybody is. The whole crew is, because especially when you have a fish that is a money fish, right? And you got it boat side, and like Anders whiffs on the harpoon or something, Not that ever happened. Sorry, Anders. That never happened. But
Sounds like that's a personal story.
Yeah. Sounds like we need to revisit that.
no, actually, no. He's great. We've caught a lot of fish together and won some stuff. Yeah, no, it's just, it's everything's on eggshells though when you're tournament fishing. You guys know it's just a new level of energy.
Yeah.
But it's fun. That's what I love. I love that excitement. I love that, that feeling when you're leaving the dock, like, all right, where am I going? It's like everything feels like like almost military,
Yeah.
It's just, that you got to be that intense.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, to really, put you and your crew to the maximum potential. You got to have that intense energy
And think outside the box.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the, you get in such a rhythm with charters and prepping for charters that tournaments, for me anyway, bring you to that whole nother level of awareness, thinking outside the box, challenging yourself more.
Challenging yourself, and also just, trying new things. And I use my charters as like guinea pigs to try different things. And, a lot of times they fail miserably, but I'd rather do it then than do it in a tournament,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, tournament, it's great to see the tournament still doing well. We fished the Mid-Atlantic last summer for the first time. And I'll tell you what an event that thing is. I mean, that's like the varsity of tournaments, compared to mine. I'm in the JV level. I mean, they have hundreds of boats. And it's very well done, but I like their format. The only thing that's tough about that tournament is you've got to come back each day. So it's like an Ironman competition. You got to be out, at the crack of dawn, and then you got to be back end of the day to weigh in.
Wow.
To the canyons.
You need speed.
You need the speed, and you need the boats. You need there was a day we had some rough weather, and I beat the shit out of my boat, just bashing into like a northeast swell.
Yeah.
Just to get to, and we ran 123 miles to the Hudson because there was a big eye bite, and there were already like 2 big blue marlin caught. So I was like, we're fucked, and that was our plan, was like, we're not even going to white marlin fish and go head to head with those guys. We're going to blue marlin fish because, blue marlin fishing for us is a little easier, and we catch a few, but out of the gate it was like a 700 and like a 900 something.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we're going tuna fishing.
Yeah.
And then we ran like 123 miles with there were a couple other boats that were all northeast guys. It was like de Blasio and Dean and we all got blanked. And it was a long ride back to the dock.
There was some huge
Good strategy though.
It was a good strategy because there were fish there. Right. Mark had seen them the day before. They just were real finicky. They were there, but they just wouldn't come up. You guys know the drill. Fucking fish.
That's the way it rolls.
They'll test the patience of the Dalai Lama.
Taking weather conditions, sea surface temperature, all those other factors out of the picture, what is your favorite canyon to fish?
I don't know. I feel like I'm most at home. I have this like familiarity with like Veach for some reason. Probably because I've fished there a shitload. Veach is that canyon it's a little on the outskirts of town, but it's still very doable. It's in range. It's not like it's not like going to hydro where it's like an extra hour of your running time, So I'd say Veach, and we've caught a lot of really great fish there, that we've just had a lot of cool experiences there.
What is it anything specific structure wise that you like about it, or is it just straight up proximity?
I think it's experience. I just feel like we've had some success stories there, and the structure is good though. There's a lot of defined edges on the walls, and then there's some seamounts too that are just off out in the throat of the canyon that are really good sword fishing spots. Tommy would kill me if I say too many more things about those.
You can contain your secret.
I feel like Beach has options too. Like you got options. Like if you get there and nothing crazy is going on.
Yeah.
Like you're so close. You got that wall to the west that's just almost always has fish on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that west wall is fishy. There's always yellowfin there for some reason. And there's always big marlin out there. There's usually big eye in the deep. It's rare that Veach isn't holding fish. The problem is it gets crowded.
Yeah.
Like last last summer we were out there, and I was with Anders, and we caught a really big blue, and but there were, those big yellowfin were there, and but there must have been like, I don't know, 50 boats. It was like the bank.
Yeah,
they were that, and I was like, where the fuck are they coming from? Like, then they were from all over the place. There were guys from New Jersey, but the word got out. Everybody was chasing those big yellowfin, and so, some of the fish. We lost one that was $150. You know, we caught one that was maybe 130, but then we lost a really big. It looked like a big eye with sickles. It was unreal.
That's sick.
I was so depressed because that was the first one, and I was like, I've been looking for that fish for years, you know. And then we ended up finally catching one that was decent. But
wow,
yeah.
Ask your big blue marlin question. That's perfect.
Yeah, so
I'm assuming that's the picture. He probably just
that was the fish
probably
that
is,
I posted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what. I mean, we just saw that on. I think it was Facebook. You posted it, but what is your biggest blue in the canyons, and maybe a little bit of the story behind it?
That is definitely going to be the fish that I caught with Nick back in, I want to say it was like 2007. Might have even been 2006. It was with Nick and Blake Murphy were my mates, and we were out at, I had just blown a motor. Actually, this was the season from hell. If you want the real story,
Yeah, you want the real story.
This was the season from hell. So I did I was married at the time. I did a 4th of July trip to Nantucket with my family, and my kids were really little at the time. Anyways, I get back to Falmouth, and I felt this vibration, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I sent my wife home with the kids, and I went to McDougal's to kind of get checked out to see, because I knew so I called McDougal's, and they were like, yeah, we'll haul you out and take a look at your running gear. You know, maybe you got a bent shaft or whatever. So as I was hauling out, I spun a prop. I dropped the wheel like right in the mud of Falmouth Harbor. Like I literally was pulling to the travel lift, and it was like, whoa! And I was like, what the fuck? You know, the RPM's flying. And then all of a sudden I had no like starboard side. So now the boat's drifting into pilings, and like people are yelling at me like, put the boat in. I'm like, So we finally 20 people come running over, and they like pull me into the slings, and they haul the boat, and the wheel's gone. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. It like literally like just spun right out. The shaft like broke in half. So there was a hairline crack, and what had happened was I had stored the boat in North Carolina that winter, and the guy who I'm not even gonna say the marina. The guy who put the props back on didn't put the keys in correctly. He put them in like halfway. Mm-hmm. So they put a lot of stress on my shafts, and there were all these hairline cracks on the shafts that, you couldn't see, looking at it, you couldn't see it. But when you put like the light on it, they were they looked at it and they're like, both shafts are screwed, and you got to get a new prop, or we can hire a diver to go in. Well, Falmouth Harbor, the visibility is like, black bean soup, basically. So I hired a diver to go down there, and he got the wheel. It was already like in the mud. So I had 2 new shafts, huge insurance claim, big deductible, out of commission for like 2 weeks. So I had that addressed. That was right in July, like right in the middle of an awesome bite too. The canyons were on fire. Of course they were. Like I was getting texts from like everybody, like, why aren't you out there? It's like long story. So they got the boat fixed. I went back in, and I was on my way out to, and I had Blake and I think Nick on the boat. It was literally the next trip. Like, all right, I'm back. Late July, we go out. Boom! I'm like, what the fuck's that noise?
This go down on the way out.
On the way, we
God.
just got to Atlanta, so we were just pulling them back. I literally was on the tower looking for high flyers, because I was like, one of my charters was like, we want to catch some mahi. So I slowed down, and I see a high flyer. So I slow down, and all of a sudden I lose the starboard engine, and lo and behold, hydrolocked, blown engine. So now I'm like, you got to be shitting me. Like I just came off this like monstrosity of an issue with running gear, and now now I have a blown engine and I'm at Atlantis Canyon, and we were like right on the numbers where like I could see the green stick guys working. They were doing circles, like there were fish there, and like it was that feeling of excitement you get where like you see slicks and like, all right, we're in the zone, and you yell down at everybody like, here we go, and it's like I had that excitement for like 5 seconds. And then it was like, do. So now we go down, and like Nick's down in the engine room with me, and I'm trying to bar the engine by hand with a big socket, and he's like, it's hydrolocked. I'm like, yeah, I know, fuck. So now we're like, all right, I'm on one. What do I do? So the people that are like, with us were like, well, can we like? I'm like, guys, we got to go in. It's going to be like a 13-hour ride. And there was weather coming like the following day in the afternoon. We were going to try to beat it, fish and then screw out of there. So I'm like, we're going to have to turn around. And I felt awful for the charter because they were just like,
the level of stoke went.
Oh yeah, gone.
Oh, and they just start
Deflated.
cracking beers. It's like it's like 10 in the morning, and everybody's just like, what the fuck? So we put a spread out, and we're trolling on one engine. And I'm like, I'm on my satellite phone on my tower, like having a nervous breakdown, like literally, like the Italian temper was in full gear, full swing. I think I called my wife and told her like, I was gonna kill myself, and then I called my mechanic Joe, and Joe's like, Joe Sacchetti, he's a good buddy of mine. And Joe's like, he's like, don't try to start the engine. I'm like, I'm like, I didn't know it was hydrolocked. 'Cause that's the worst thing you can do if your engine's hydrolocked is obviously try to start the friggin' thing, because then you bend all the rods and everything else. But I didn't know. I thought when I lost it initially, I thought it was an electrical problem. And that does happen on my boat or with the Old Man's. I would have sometimes because I had mechanical RPM, what do you call them? Cables, that would actually spin like a gauge, so I could see my RPMs mechanically. And sometimes that would like come loose, and I would literally lose my engine gear, and it would do exactly what just happened. And so, anyways, I was like, I knew the engine was toast, and so I was like, all right, we're gonna head in. So we're heading in, we're trolling, and we catch a big mahi. It was like a 34-pound mahi. So that was like, all right, well, we got a fish, and then I'm thinking, all right, well, now I can at least charge these guys something. We got a fish to pay for my fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was bad. And then we kept trolling, and I don't know, we were climbing up the wall because we had run all the way to the southeast corner of Atlantis Canyon, and then started working our way up the wall. And we were probably like right at the tip. And I saw a bunch of mahi like flying out of the water. It looked like a school of it looked like a school of bait, but they were all mahi, and they were literally just doing this. And I thought, they must be like chasing squid or something, And so I kind of headed over there, and we get there, and now I'm down in the cockpit, and I'm just kind of standing there, probably just like commiserating with God, and I'm looking out behind me, and I see this fucking shadow come up to the right short. It was the Evil on the right short, and I was like, the shadow was like so big that I thought it must be like a cloud, and I remember being like, not like excited, just kind of confused, like, what the fuck is that? And next thing you know, it was just like a little just whoosh, and then clip off the outrigger, no boil, no crash, no sickle fin, just like a little bit of like and then all of a sudden it was just like, and then a huge boil when the fish must have felt like pressure, and it looked like a mammal, just left a huge boil, and I was like, oh fuck, we just hooked a giant. Right, instantly I was like, we have a giant on. So we cleared the spread, we got dumped. I mean, absolutely dumped. It was an 80, and back then we weren't even using Spectra yet. We were using Dacron. So it was an 80 with Dacron with like a top shot of like 130, and literally like Nick was on the rod. I was just like, stay on the rod, and everybody else is reeling shit, and everything's swinging in the riggers. And Nick's like, we're getting spooled. I'm like, no shit. And so now I'm on one, and I'm like, how the fuck are we, I can't back down on this thing. So literally, I just remember like looking up and being like, what the fuck is that? And it was literally like the next town over. I was seeing whitewater, and it was this
Holy
fish.
shit.
It was like a mile. It was so far away. And the line, the belly was like going this way. You know how it is with lines, you know. And the belly, you know, the line was going straight out and then over here. And then like out here was the fish. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to go at it. So I just put the boat in gear and made like this, you know, big long arc and finally slacked up the rod enough where Nick could start getting some line. He was down to, you can ask him, he was down to like nothing. Starting
to see gold in the harbor of the
definitely down to see gold. He was like, I think he said that. And I told him and he goosed the drag too. That was the other thing. He fucking went up, and that's what brought the fish up to jump. I told him to goose the drag. I was like, fuck it, just do it. Yeah. And I figured that there was enough belly in the line that when, you know, 'cause sometimes when you goose the drag, you can actually just pull the line through the water and not just, you know, pop the fish off. So he gooses the drag, and like all of a sudden the fish came up. And then everyone's like, it's a marlin, you know. And then I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this thing's got to be a big marlin. You know, it just emptied the spool in like 30 seconds. So anyways, I'm shooting at the fish on one engine, and Nick's reeling some slack. And I mean, the line was draped across the ocean like kite string. Like it was just, you know, 'cause now it's slack, right? And I'm trying not to run it over because I'm like, where is it? I'm trying to head towards the fish without running the line over. That was the big thing. And so Nick's yelling at me the whole time, like, you know, right, because, you know, he's reeling, it's on the port side, and he's and you know, literally like the rods, you know, the boat's like this and the rod's like this. So we finally get like onto the top shot, and then it's just like a grudge match, and I don't know, it was probably like an hour and a half. And I went up to the tower because I wanted to get some video. I was videoing back then for the thing I used to do called the Monster Club. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh yeah,
it was
I think I watched all the videos multiple times.
It was so much fun. Yeah, we used to do that. So I was videoing for that thing, and so, you know, I was up on the tower shooting down, and I start to see color. And this guy Ivo Allen was the charter. He was a guy from New Jersey. He'd actually caught the tiger shark with me. Just a lucky Irish.
Yeah. Has a horseshoe.
SOB, yeah. Yep. So he's reeling in this fish, and I remember looking down, and I remember seeing the color, and it was like, holy crap, like this thing was a submarine, you know, all lit up. And that was the first time I'd seen a real big blue that was, you know, wasn't a 400 pounder. This thing was fucking massive. And I remember yelling down at those guys, like, this thing's huge. And then, you know, when it came up, Nick was like wiring the thing, and I remember he stepped back when the thing came up. He was just like, holy shit. I could see it, like, and Nick's, you know, you guys know
he's
Nick.
Not a small guy.
He's Turbo. Turbo doesn't flinch. Turbo flinched. When he saw this fish, he stepped back and he looked up at me. Like, he stepped back and then he looked up like, are you seeing this shit? And we were all just like jaws open, you know, like, holy crap. And nobody thought to like take pictures. I'm videoing, and the picture that's on Facebook, the one after the pic we were talking about, it's a shitty, grainy shot is from the video. Yeah. And so, but that fish came up, and you know, we got her on our side, and I mean, it was it looked like the fish had stopped growing lengthwise and just continued growing girthwise. It looked deformed, like the shoulders came off the head and just went straight up. Like almost like a hunchback. Yeah. Except it wasn't just a hunch. It was like the whole mass of the fish, and then it tapered down. It was so just this. Yeah, it was really strange. Like, it was literally like sea monstrous. Like, it looked like a deformed marlin. And if the first thing I thought was like, this fish is like fucked up looking, like almost like we caught a mutant.
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, this is what happens with these things. This is what they do. They just keep growing. It was massive. I mean, I don't know. You can ask Blake. It was so big. Like, Blake had to hold Nick, and he like held out to grab the thing was so, you know, wide. It took like one of those guys to like literally like stretch out to grab the dorsal, because I wanted to keep the fish upright. I mean, the thing was exhausted. It was absolutely wiped, like no color. And so we literally revived that fish for at least a half hour, and it was a bitch. Like, Nick almost fell in the water like 3 times. You know, he was holding on to the dorsal as best as he could. And at this point, I just had the trolling valve on, and we were trying to save the fish. I wasn't like filming, you know. Yeah. And I did some filming of the fish on the side of the boat, but it was so hard because there were all these guys, and you see like Nick's like, you know, board shorts falling off his big white ass, and it's like, you know, you get that, and then Blake's holding his legs like this, and then some other guys like reaching out with like a gap. This was when a snooter, by the way.
Would have been awesome.
Would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And that's there's a workshop that we're doing at the seminar on how to use a snooter, and I know a good manufacturer who makes them to order, and they're cheap. They're like a few $100 or a couple hundred, you know, but man, it's just a lasso device that you can put on the bill of a fish, and then you can help like move the fish and direct the fish. Because those marlin, man, when they come up cooked, I mean, you guys know they're exhausted, and a lot of them die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, if you don't put the time in, and really you need to see color in their pecks to you know, and sometimes you don't get it. Sometimes you just don't get it. But we were able to revive this thing. It took about a half hour, and man, it was just one of those fish that I thought about killing it, you know, just to see what it weighed, because no one's going to believe us kind of thing, you know, and you can't say it's a grander because, you know, till it's on the scales, which is absolutely right.
Yeah.
But, you know, we all looked at it. We took a rough measurement, like it was like a 138-inch fork. You know, we measured the area of like we lined it up on the boat. The other guy, Andre, on the charter, who became a good friend of mine, you know, that's what he was like, just put it on the side of the boat and then we'll use a tape after. And so the rough fork was like 138 inches. You know, that's a fucking monster.
That's a huge fish.
Huge fish.
I can't even imagine how big the tail on that fish must have been.
It was massive. The tail, and that was one of the things I saw when it was down about 20 feet, was that big tail.
Yeah.
It was a massive tail.
Must
and
have
the
been
bill
5-6 feet
Had to have
wide,
been.
right?
It's insane how much longer they are than a tuna tail.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. The bill too was really thick, because I remember Nick was trying to grab that at first, and he couldn't get his hands. He couldn't get like a good grab on it, and even to this day, he's always like, that fucking bill. You know, the thing was just like a.
You just wonder
pole.
what a fish like that has seen in its lifetime.
Or
Where it
eaten.
came from.
Yeah.
You know, like, was that thing swimming around like Brazil?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's a big ocean dwelling fish that, you know, highly migratory fish, could have came from anywhere.
So cool.
It is cool.
It is cool that we have that, you know, species like that up off of Massachusetts. I mean, I tell people even today, like, you know, like, they're like, where do you catch those blue marlin down in Florida, Key West? I'm like, no, Nantucket.
Yeah.
You know, people don't get it. They still don't understand. Like, we have a great blue water fishery up here.
It's world class.
It really is. I mean, it's far away, and you know, you need a couple of days and a few $1,000s of fuel to do it. But I'll tell you, man, if you can do that, it's like it's I'd put it up against any fishery.
Yeah, absolutely. The variety and stuff, just especially when you have a place to yourself and you time it right and the conditions are right, the fish can be so aggressive.
Yeah.
So aggressive. Just not a lot of boat pressure all the time. That's awesome.
Yeah, the tuna fishing's good too, you know, which is nice, like out there. And then in the early season, you get the giants out there too,
Yeah.
which is cool, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Is this my water, by the way?
That's your water.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
I'm going to see what else is on the...
If you we ask everyone who catches blue marlin in the canyons this question too. Blue marlin or giant bluefin tuna?
For the rest of
Like
your
if
life,
we were gonna
David,
put
for the
the
rest of
two
your
in
life.
like a cage match together.
we're doing cage match?
Yeah, like
style?
cage
cage
match, like a
match.
cage match
Nice.
fight between
How about
a
tug of
bluefin-
war, like a hook and a hook?
Okay, tug of war, bluefin, giant.
All right, so this
From
is,
the bite.
we're going to break this down to like 3 categories.
Yeah.
So I like all these
So
categories.
if they bit at the exact same time, running opposite directions, with infinite pound test and infinite hook.
All right, so initial power, I'd say they're about equal.
Okay.
Initial power, I'd say that, because I've had giants, and I'm sure you guys have too, that have just taken off to the races.
Yeah.
And there's no stopping them.
Yeah.
And you just pray they turn or something happens.
At a standstill, too, which is like another factor to this.
Yeah, it's
because like you're
no-
sitting still
That's
a lot
true.
of times giant fishing,
Good
and they
point.
take lines so fast.
Good point.
It's kind of, you know, the hook one going that fast trolling is a whole nother ball game.
Yep.
But go ahead.
Yep. No, it's a good point. So I would say they're equal. I would say after the initial run, you know, like the grudge match, the tuna's going to win that one, I think.
Yeah.
I think marlin tend to, they don't give up all the time. We've had blues that have fought to the death, and I hate when they do that. We always try to, you know, the thing about a blue marlin is a lot of times they'll jump themselves out. They'll be on the surface and they'll stay on the surface, kind of confused. They're catching their breath, and we try to back down as fast as humanly possible and literally slack the line so the fish doesn't feel anything. It almost feels like it's free.
Yeah.
And I've done this with Andy a couple times where we back down on a green fish just sitting on the surface, and by the time they try to come alive, we already got the leader and they just pop right off.
Yeah.
That's ultimately the way to do it if you can. But man, some of those fish they sound and they go into that, the deep water and they die. They just fight to the death, and then you're screwed because it's so hard to get a big fish up on stand up, a dead fish.
Yeah.
Just like a tuna. But yeah, no, I'd give that round to the tuna, the grudge match. And then in a cage fight, ooh, that's tough because the marlin's got a weapon, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some of the pictures I've seen, like impaling 80-pound yellowfins and stuff, like I'm all set with that. Imagine that.
Or some of the stories that Kenton Gear has of them eating big eyes off the danglers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I got a good story. A friend of mine, it didn't happen to me, but my friend Greg Schulteis was fishing in the Beach Haven tournament years ago. I met him in Panama, became a good friend of mine, but they had an albacore they were fighting. It was like a 40-pound albie that they had in the wash, and a monster blue, like he said, around 700, came up and whacked the thing right in half. Just put that thing in half, in two pieces. And then came back, and the captain was like, "Get it back! You can throw that, but get the head." And they left it was like on a zucker feather, I think he said, and they just drifted the head back, and the thing came back up, ate the head.
Wow!
And they had it on for 5 minutes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It's crazy to think being able to swing that bill around like they do under. Like you can barely swing your arm underwater. At
yeah,
high
right.
Speed. And being able to smash something in half that way with the displacement.
Yeah.
Here's a weird question that just popped into my mind. Have you ever heard of anybody hooking a blue marlin at night fishing for swordfish?
So not a blue, but a white. We hooked a white one time on a piece of butterfish. Like we were chumming. This was way back. This was probably like in 2005, and we hooked a white marlin on a chunk.
Huh.
That was bizarre.
What do you think it is? You think it's all just because they sight fish and it's dark, or do you think they just don't eat at night at all?
I don't think they eat at night because I do a lot of trolling at night. We do a lot of trolling at night. We didn't do it back in the day, but probably for the past 6 or 7 years, we've been trolling a lot. Sometimes the entire night we'll troll, just because there's big eye around. 10 years ago when like Scotty and Johnny were fishing with me, we were psyched when we caught a big eye every 2 weeks. Now, multiple big eye on a trip is like, yeah, it's a decent trip. So but those are nocturnal fish. So obviously it makes sense to fish at night and not just focus on swords unless you want to, but yeah, no, I don't think they feed at night. I really don't. I don't know anyone who's caught a blue at night. Do you guys?
I don't know anybody.
The only blue marlin activity I've heard of at night is that video Galvin posted. I think it was like the battle
swimming around the boat, right?
That was in the lights.
That wasn't too long after setting up, though. I don't think. I think he like just set up.
The sun
their
like just
swords
went
and
down,
then-
or
yeah.
Was that the big game battle where you have to? The night bite starts at like 9.
It
or
was
something?
the big game battle because it's funny. I thought of that too on this question. I thought the exact same thing.
They didn't hook it, but it was like a 400 plus pounder just swimming around the lights. It's pretty wild.
And I'm sure they threw something at it. You know what I mean? And if it was feeding, it probably would have ate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Curiosity.
That would have been an interesting fight.
Speaking of Galvin,
Let's talk to Hairy Johnny.
Chewbacca.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite Johnny Galvin stories?
Oh man, I could write a book. I am writing a book, actually.
Are you?
I am.
Awesome.
I am writing a book about all this shit.
That is awesome.
That's cool.
I hope I've been saying every year, like, I'll have it published next year. It's been like a decade, but no, I'm trying to get like 15 stories together, and I'm like 8. I'm like halfway there.
That's great.
Really cool.
You're a great writer. That's gonna be an awesome read.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy, I love the story element of it. I do. Just this stuff, writing, whatever. But yeah, no, Johnny and I fished together for a long time. We have a lot of crazy stories together. Johnny Galvin's story. Honestly, the best stories were when Kevin Glenn was in the lineup with us, and we used to fish like the tri-state with Kevin. We did that a couple of times. It was Johnny, Kevin, I think one time we had Johnny, Kevin, Nick, and Scotty. How about that for an all-star cast?
Wow.
How did you survive?
Yeah, exactly.
I was like literally like I was like a babysitter back then. I felt like their dad. But no, those guys were funny, man. We used to have so much fun. There was one scene that I actually videoed it, and I put it on I made like a scissor reel of all the stupid shit we did back in the day. And there's one scene where like Johnny's eating like a tuna heart, and he's like chewing it, and there's like blood like dripping down his jaws. Like if he tried to do this now, he'd have tuna blood in his beard for like a year. It looked like a murder scene, and he's like chewing it, and he's chewing it. He's like, it tastes pretty good.
I can picture him doing that too.
Yeah. Oh no, he goes, it's still beating. That's what he said. He goes, it's still beating.
Oh my god.
Kevin's like spraying him with the wash down hose, like literally.
Oh, that's great. He's a character.
We had some crazy stories. We got hit by lightning one time. I think he was on the boat for that. Out of Fishtails. We saw a nuclear submarine. Johnny goes, we were like literally catching yellowfin, and I was like, I gotta film this and I gotta find this footage because I have it buried in like my archives of like HD H8, what was it, high 8 tapes. Remember those fucking things? Yeah. I have like mountains of those things in a closet somewhere. But there was a nuclear sub, and it was like no markings on it, and it like popped up next to us, and we were like fighting fish. And I remember, Johnny's like, call me crazy, call me insane. I just saw me a submarine or something like that. Of course, I was filming that too, and I'm like, and I literally, it's like a yellowfin, like a 30-pound yellowfin on the deck, and then it's like, there's like a fucking 400-foot sub.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Yeah. No, he's a fun one to have around.
Yes, he is a character.
We ask everyone this. We're actually ending the rapid fire with this instead of starting.
Okay, I like it.
Superstitions. Are you a superstitious fisherman? Do you have anything on the boat systematically that has to be a certain way because you're superstitious?
I'm very superstitious, but it changes daily. You know what I mean? And that's what I tell my my shrink and my parole officer.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I honestly I am very superstitious, and I'm always doing whacked out shit, and I don't know why, and it's like always spur of the moment, and sometimes people are like, Andrew's just like, why? And it's like, don't ask why, just do it, So yes, I'm very superstitious, but there's not really anything I can it's not like we paint everything red the night before. Like I don't have any like ritual.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what you're feeling in the moment.
What I'm feeling in the moment, and exactly.
Let the OCD take over.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be one of those things where it's like, I'm not going there because I know, it's just like a gut. Sometimes it's just a guttural thing. But I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure there's stuff. I just can't think of it offhand, but I'm sure there's some ridiculous shit that I do that
whatever it is, must work. It seems to work anyway.
We catch. Well, we're out there all the time too. I mean, it's like anything. You do it enough, just like you guys. You figure it out, and you master that pursuit. As best as you can, and you become successful at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys have any superstitions?
I'm similar to you. I change them daily, every season. Last year it was socks. I had like
Brian has weird ones.
Yeah, Taylor knows this. I have this like hierarchy of fishing clothing. So you give me a fresh shirt. I get an OBBC 2022 shirt. We do good in the tournament. I'll wear that shirt for the rest of the season. We have a good couple days. That eventually makes its way to like, all right, this is one of the 10 shirts I'm going to wear all year.
He has an RJ Boyle shirt that I'm pretty sure is in every tuna picture.
Almost every single.
But he also
it's
has
either on underneath
that is the
something.
lucky
It's
shirt
in my bag.
Interesting.
But you just slowly climb the ladder. If I wear it and I don't catch shit that day, it goes down a notch.
Okay.
And I was doing that with socks last year. Yeah, so that's weird.
I got nothing other than we use the same color balloons. But it's not really a superstition. It's just what we buy and what we...
No, I think it's pretty super.
We use red balloons for all high floaters.
So that's
We
funny.
use yellow balloons for everything weighted.
That's interesting. So that is, I do the same thing. Not the same colors, but I am superstitious with the balloon colors.
Yeah. Are there any colors that you absolutely cannot have?
Yeah, I don't like green for some reason. I'm always like, don't use the green.
Use the green
I
balloon.
don't think I've used green.
Don't use the
green or blue. I don't use blue either.
I like blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Jeff won't put a yellow balloon in the
I know
water.
Jeff hates yellow.
I don't like yellow either. I'm with you, Jeff. Fuck yellow.
Tell us about your 2021 season, like from start to finish. How'd it go? What'd you catch?
Yeah, 2021 was good. It was rough. So like the beginning of the year in June, I like to. So as you guys know, like we've had every year. It's like the season starts earlier and earlier. I feel like it's going to be May one of these times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was ready to go in mid-June this year. And I got a bunch of stuff on the books for this coming June, just because we've had such good early season activity out there. But the problem was I couldn't get to the damn fish. Sinful was out there catching lots of fish, off the edge. I know Mark had a really successful trip, and it was all in June. And every time I was slated to go, and this happened 3 trips in a row, we got blown out. So that was frustrating.
It was a windy
there.
early season.
Wicked windy. I mean, I was doing bass
gross.
trips with Rob, and it was like we were like, well, let's just go get breakfast. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that crappy.
Rainy, gross,
fucking windy. Once it did break, the fishing was good. The tournament, the Oak Bluffs Blue Water Classic this year, had a lot of fish, which was good to see. Lots of tunas, lots of marlin. A lot of guys went out. I feel like the better part of the year started to the east, like out in the eastern canyons, like way out there. It kind of, I feel like they went to, in my tournament, they were all out at like Ocean and even east.
It's pretty wild what they're doing over there.
It is. I keep seeing these big fat, mambo tuna on swim platforms. So I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
But that's European tuna fish.
It is. That's actually one of the coolest things, I think, following people that catch them all over the world, seeing the types of boats that they're using to catch them.
It's strange.
It's crazy.
Just Hawaii
the drastic
alone, like look at
differences.
Hawaii, like how they have like everything on pedestal rod holders, and
Yeah.
like they don't even use their gunnels.
Yeah.
Or in Italy where they have the one holder and they're all spread
Yeah,
out.
it's like
you
a
were just
rock.
saying.
They're like chumming from a rocket launch.
Yeah.
I have one of
Strange.
those
Do you?
that I got at like some auction, and it's just sitting in my basement, and it weighs about 200 pounds. It's like a huge thing of metal, but it can hold like 10 rods.
It's cool. That's awesome.
So where were we?
2021, we're talking about windy June, the canyons going off in June, and Damon trying to get there. That's where we were.
Yes, trying and failing
Yes.
miserably. Yeah, we didn't. I think our first trip was like, I was definitely after the 4th. It was in July, and I think it might have been after my tournament even. So my tournament's usually around the 12th of the month of July, and that's what it is this year. I think it was like the 14th last year. But anyways. Usually my tournament is smack in the middle of like a red hot bite, and it's been like that for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And this year was no different. I know. So what I was saying is the bite was out east. It was way out towards like Oceanographer, and even east of there, Lydonia, and the boats that could make it all did well. I mean, the boats the boat who won, Picasso Moon, he racked up a bunch of points with Bluefish. I think he had like 2 blue marlin, some whites. There was Swordfish out there, and all that water kind of pushed west as the season progressed. And by the time August rolled around, it was there was good fishing, like basically out at the north, in the regular canyons, Hydrographer, Veach. We had our best fishing, I feel like, late in the summer, when those big yellowfin were around. Like I said earlier, we fished the Mid-Atlantic, and it was really frustrating for us. It was just the fishing was slow. I mean, there were several hundred boats, and I would say half of them struggled, and good boats, guys who know what they're doing. and we went, like I said, we ran to Hudson one day and fished, and there must have been, 50 boats there, and I think maybe 3 or 4 caught fish. And then we went to Wilmington Canyon. One thing I noticed about fishing down there is the tuna that were hooked, the boats that were fighting big eye, and they were fighting them for like 4 hours, were on like really light setups. So the bites were coming on really shy gear. They were on white marlin setups. Guys were hooking these, 150, 200 pound big eye on the dink bait rods.
Yeah.
And they were fighting them for forever. And a lot of them were lost fish, but that was interesting because we were marking the fish. I mean, we had the birds, we had the slicks, the petrels, everything looked right. And I was thinking about, taking the boat out of gear and like dropping jigs down, but you can't. It's a trolling tournament only. Yeah. But I was like, man, a Ron Z would crush these fish, especially these shy fish that are down deep. And we couldn't get them up. We tried everything. Tommy was going out of his mind. Maddie, all of us were trying everything. But that's what I noticed down there. And I think it's probably because of the traffic. One thing we have to be thankful for is we don't have the traffic on those eastern canyons like a lot of other places do, which is nice. I mean, I remember days we'd be the only boat out there. Those days are pretty much gone, but yeah, I like to fish towards the eastern canyons, like Beach, Hydrographer. But yeah, we had some good fish. We caught some swords, some big eye.
You seem to be getting more and more focused towards the swordfish thing. The last couple of years,
because of Tommy and Anders is dialed in on it now, and they love to do it. I mean, Tommy literally like begs me to stop and deep drop, and then when we're doing it, I'll be like, I'll tell him like, all right, we'll do it for an hour, and then it's like an hour and a half later, I'll be like, all right, so Tommy, 5 more minutes, and he'll be like, okay. And then 5 minutes becomes like 15 minutes. And then 15 minutes becomes 35 minutes. And then literally we're arguing. And he's just like, come on, one more drift. And I'm like, all right. But no, he loves it. It's funny because I like the the daytime drop game, but I'm not I'd much rather be moving around and trolling for blues.
Yeah.
That's just me. But everybody's different. I always feel like when I'm daytiming and I'm out of the race. I'm stepping in the in the rest area, and I get like anxious when we're just sitting there.
It's tough in a tournament. It's like a total mind game.
It is. It is. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were fishing the big game battle, and like a swordfish is worth a lot of points in that tournament. I almost feel like they need to adjust that a little because the guys who do well are always someone who has a swordfish. And I was like, we got to do a daytime swordfish in this. And we had already caught, a bunch of yellowfin. We had I don't think we had a blue, but we had like a couple whites and some mahi. Like we had a good variety of fish, but I was like, we need, instead of chasing the blue marlin, I was like, we got to get a sword. And we spent 5 hours drifting, and we finally got a swordfish, and it helped us, win some money. But I mean, you're right though. It's nerve-wracking.
It is.
It's so nerve-wracking because, there's guys trolling around you and you can hear the chatter on the radio, just released another one. It's like, fuck, what are we doing here? But those guys, I mean, Anders and Tommy are very dialed in. I mean, Anders fished with Nick down in, the Keys, Nick Stanzik, and, learned a lot from Nick. And he's just it's nice to watch those guys and just see what they do.
Yeah.
Because it's a total different mindset. It's just it's mathematics. It's I mean, the rigging's the same, rigging a strip bait, whatever, it's similar to, I learned how to do that.
It's all symmetry and all that stuff. Same sort of principles.
Same principles, but it's like, as far as like the, the placement of your bait though, there's a lot of math there. And it's like, figuring it out is not always easy, especially when there's, tide. And I feel like the bite was better when the tide was moving. I noticed that past couple of years.
Better action to the bait or
better, either better action or maybe the fish are just opportunistic. I mean, swords are down low. Tommy always likes to fish, holes, like trenches, and it makes sense. It's almost like a bass, just hanging out there, just picking stuff off the bottom, crabs and lobsters, whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there ever any time where they're looking for something on the surface before dropping? I always wonder that, like, you looking for slicks or like stuff on the surface to help determine where you're going to drop deep?
Nope. It's always bottom. In fact, Tom, I mean, that's just my experience is just staring at the bottom, literally staring at the sounder and watching the bottom and like literally putting a scope on the bottom and just looking for, and sometimes you can mark fish. We've marked, they don't look like a hook. They're just like a stick.
Yeah.
But they're right off the bottom. A lot of those fish are just down there. Sometimes they look like they're part of the bottom. I remember Tommy got all excited one time. He's like, "Oh, that's a swordfish." And I'm like, "What? That little piece of crud? It's like a piece of seaweed down there."
Yeah.
But I mean, you're going, you're looking down 1,500 feet. No, it's a lot of it's just bottom, and it's some of it's counterintuitive too, because you're kind of just like letting out a ton of line. One thing we did do is during the offshore cup, we were going IGFA legal, so we weren't using electric reels.
Yeah.
We were doing it manually.
Wow.
And I will say, the first time we did that, I remember like just we let out an ungodly amount of line. Like I think it was like 1,800 feet of line off the reel on a 50. And we were like East Atlantis, and I had one of my really good clients, Jimmy Riccardi, and we were fishing the offshore cup, so we had to be IGFA legal. And we were watching the tip, and sure enough, we get the bite, come tight. Jimmy's reeling the thing in, and slowly but surely that thing comes to the surface. And next thing you know, like Tommy and I are like staring out at the horizon, and you see these like birds like just fly, and it was like a mile away. And it was like the fish just spooked those birds. Like, that's our fish. And I remember Jimmy was like, that's not the fucking fish. I'm like, that's the fish, Jimmy. And his head just kind of like, he's like, oh, no.
Better you than me, pal.
Right. And then you got that big 10-pound weight that's like lagging around, which actually helps, sometimes, a lot of times, because it screws up the fish. But man, but we did that a lot. We did a lot of, and we're going to actually talk about that at the seminar, is like how to go, IGFA legal. Hooker Electric's got a reel now. I don't know if you guys know that allows you to kind of keep in the IGFA game, because you can take the motor right out.
Yeah.
Right.
So you drop your bait down, and then the motor comes out. Because IGFAs, they don't really care about you, checking baits and moving around and whatever. It's just they don't want any kind of mechanical device used in the reeling in of the fish.
Right.
That's where it comes. So it's tough when you're like, well, I used the bait the electric reel to raise the bait, but then I stopped, and then the fish ate. Like, they want to remove all that uncertainty out of the
So that being said, are you allowed to hook the fish? If one's attacking your bait, can you hook it with the electric reel?
No.
Okay.
That's
so
the thing.
You're seeing the bite in theory and going over and hand cranking.
You basically have to, what they want you to do is you deploy that bait, and then you take the motor out of the equation.
Okay.
And
So
now
as soon as
all
it's
mechanical.
down.
Correct.
Wow.
So here's where it gets tricky. But when you retrieve, you can put it back in.
Okay.
That's what the back-breaking, ball-breaking work is, retrieving to move or just check a bait. It's like literally 20 minutes of hand cranking. And it's like guys rotating through, and like literally your arm feels like it's going to fall off. And so that's the sucky part. But it's nice to be able to use the electric reel to do that. And that's what the hooker allows. And hopefully they'll all come out with it. I mean, I'm hoping, LP will come out with something too. We use LP reels now, and I love them. But it's, it's important to stay IGFA in these tournaments, even my tournament. Same thing. It's got to be IGFA.
And it's so strategic for up here in those multi-species tournaments, like you're saying, like
Big time.
You pretty much have to commit some time to it,
You got to put some time in and do it, because you need those points. You got to get that variety. I mean, you could have the best day. You could quad up on Big Eye and be a rock star for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Then it's over.
Yeah.
And you got to go. Now you got to go get your billfish.
You're just in the tuna Calcutta at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's right. Yep.
You know all about catching big tunas and not being in the tuna Calcutta.
Yeah, you guys do.
I don't know what it is, dude.
That's right.
Yeah, we've got
right.
giant bluefins twice, I think. Oh no, we got a smaller bluefin on one of your tournaments that won the bluefin. Well, we won both bluefin Calcuttas in 2 years in a row, but
Yeah.
We got the giant.
I remember that fish.
And it was like
it broke
we got
my
a
scale.
Exactly.
It did.
It did.
It broke our spirits too.
Dude, we hooked. I don't know if you know the whole story, but we hooked that in the first.
That was the
didn't
first line in the water.
Get out.
No.
Swear to God, pulling
serious.
into the canyon, like in the mixed water, some sheer waters, and we pulled into the canyon. We got like 4 rods out, and
You
was
got
the
the
first
left
rod.
long out. I was putting the right long out, and that went off
Yeah,
immediately.
and we thought we had a blue marlin the entire time.
I bet you did.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
because it
entire
probably
time.
blue water.
Right.
Up high, doing the whole like non-jump, acting like a blue marlin that wasn't
Yeah,
jumping.
backing down on it while it's swimming away. Never saw it.
Then sounded like, all right, he's tired. This is going
Right.
to be a dog fight. The thing's just sitting down there in the current. And
So what did you guys do when you saw color and you're like, it's
Oh,
fucking tuna? Like you probably weren't ready with a poon.
We
No.
ended up tail
Oh, you couldn't use
gaffing
a
it.
poon
No, we
anyway.
couldn't.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
we ended up just tail gaffing it.
yeah. Tail gaff, tail rope, done.
It was dead though. I mean, we fought it for 3.5 hours and it came up dead.
Came up dead.
Yeah.
Dead, yeah.
And then we had I had the same thing happen the following year with Miles
Yeah.
on our second day.
Right.
At the end of the trip, it was our last bite, and we got we released it. I released it with the propellers on the leader, but
I've done that a couple of times.
well, that big center console is like all of a sudden he's right there. You
Yeah.
know, not used to it yet, but yeah.
It's fun though when the big bluefin are out there. There was one year, I don't know, it's like maybe 5 years ago. They were out at Beach in July, and it was just on fire. And they were mixed in with yellowfin and big eye.
Yeah.
And I think you guys, I had called Rob West. I'm pretty sure you guys came out with Rob while we were out there. This was back. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say
we did
5
go out there. We didn't get a bluefin though.
No.
You got a blue marlin, I think, or big eye. I don't know.
White or I don't remember.
But anyways, I called Rob because literally we got out there and I saw a fleet and I'm like, oh, these guys are a bunch of green stick boats, like commercial boats, who were giant fishing, and I think like people that I was kind of, I mean, he fishes the canyons all the time, but everybody was like tuna fishing, and so anyways, we put the spread out and we raised like I've never seen a wolf pack of giants, and like I remember the moneymaker got blasted. That was the first thing that got hit, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that must have been a blue marlin. And then another, the Carlson bird crushed, and then like a spreader bar just got annihilated. And then I started realizing like these are fucking tuna, and then I'm like, they're not big eye, these things are giants. And we missed all 3 fish. They were throwing so much water around, like the baits were doing cartwheels. Like the spreader bar was literally like, and like, everything was like boom, 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 clip, snap, snap, nothing. And I was like, you gotta be shitting. Everybody's like, oh.
Deflated.
And then the shoots were like,
Yeah.
So we double up and we're on these fish for like, an hour and a half. We've lost one, chafed it off, and then we ended up catching it. It was like a 86-inch fish. But then we just proceeded, and then we got, I think, another one, like a same size fish. And it was like good giant fishing out at the canyons. It was
Sick.
unreal. I've never seen it that good since. But that's what you can
I remember
get.
hearing
early
about
season.
that bite.
That early June, July, you have a good shot at a Northeast tuna slam when you're out there.
You do.
I think I've got it 2 or 3 times that time of year.
Yeah, you totally do. I don't think we got the big eye that day, but we caught a bunch of yellowfin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
the trip that we doubled up on bluefin on the way in the dump? We saw
we
a
didn't-
school of fish.
We did not get the slam that trip, but I remember that trip.
Yeah.
Yep. On our way home, we got 2.
Carried away. Where were we in his season?
All right. So yeah, we were
were-
talking about the season. Yeah, I know.
right down a rabbit hole.
No, so we've gone from June. We talked about early July, August. Your tournament. We've talked about your focus on day dropping. One thing I wanted to morph into, which I'm assuming you did quite a bit of, was let's come back inshore to Chatham. Did you fish Chatham quite a bit?
I did. Yeah, I like to switch gears out of canyon mode in September, and we did that this year, and we did a lot of bluefin fishing. I mean, the bluefin fishing was just ridiculous.
Insane.
It was just insane. Which is good. It's good to see that amount of fish. I hope they, get a handle on the regulations so that we can extend the season like we did this year. That was nice. It was nice to actually have in October. Because we haven't had that in a while.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been, 4 years?
4 or 5 years.
So, no, we did the bay. I love fishing the bay. for me, the bay is like, you know, the bank for you guys. You know, I fish it all the time, and I enjoy it, even though it'll drive you to put a gun to your head sometimes. Like the bay can be torture. But lately it's been really good, and when it's good, it's worth going. There are days though that, you know, when no one's catching, you don't really want to fish the bay when it's a, you know, empty, barren, you know, bowl of salt. But like this summer fall was really good, and I lost a lot of fish though. Like we lost one with Nick that was a big fish. We fought for like 3 hours, and lost another one after that. And then I was out with my kids, and we lost another one. I think I lost like 4 in a row, and I was starting to go into like a depression.
There was like a 10-day period in there though. We weren't in there at that time.
We heard about it though.
But there was like a 10-day period where everyone in there was hooking dinosaurs. It was like all 100-inch plus slob fish.
They were all big fish, and there were a lot of lost fish. Like they were just tough. And there's so much gear. There's so much friggin' gear in that bay, and that's the problem. And the fish are right in the gear a lot of times, especially when you're fishing around the ledge, which is where I like to fish. There's a ton of pots in there.
Yeah.
And the fish always seem to go right for the friggin' pots.
They really do.
It's unreal.
Pots, boats, anchors.
Pots, boats, anchors, and that's the other thing. You know, you get a lot of boats in there, and not everybody knows protocol on how to handle crowds but yeah, no, we lost a lot of fish, and then finally broke the ice. You know, after like, I don't know, 5 or 6 trips, but it was good. It was good, and then we did go to Chatham. I did a day where Scotty Clay and I ran around the hook there and ran down to like, I think we were like off of Nauset. I feel like that's where the bite was. Like guys like Jay Goodwin were fishing out there all season and catching fish, you know, even on slow days, you know. He said there were fish there. And it wasn't like there was a lot of bait. The mackerel were kind of tough to come by. You know, I found the macs were actually in the shallows. That's where we ended up finding them, where it was around the pot line and stuff, like in the
Sounds
shallow.
like Peaked Hill.
Yeah.
It was a lot like Peaked Hill. It was a lot like Peaked Hill. You know, the fish the macs weren't like out in the deep. And that's another spot I like to fish. And we actually caught a fish over near Peaked Hill. I saw you guys out there actually once or twice.
That was when there's fish busting everywhere, and none of us could catch one.
That was torture.
We all had bites, and no one caught. We had a kite bite. I think you had a high floater bite or whatever.
That's right. That was frustrating. And then, of course, there were all the fucking sunfish that were blasting out around it. And I'd be like, there's one. And no, that's a friggin' sunfish.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst. You see like whitewater, and then you see like the stupid fin like 5 minutes later. It's like, oh.
They do trick you. They get that tuna crash look from a distance. For
They
sure.
do.
Funny. Want to go back to the bay? And
Yeah. You asked the question.
So, I mean, we don't fish the bay much. You fished it a lot more than us. Have you seen any, you're going to laugh when I say this, have you seen any patterns? Have you seen any like the bank, you can kind of develop a pattern with the fish? Mm-hmm. Have you seen any patterns with the bay, how the fish move, where they might be certain times of day, certain tides? Have you seen anything, or does it seem to be completely random?
I'll be honest with you. I'd be lying if I told you there was a pattern that I had in my log, because there really isn't. It's very, very random. Back in the day, the bay was an afternoon spot. It was dead in the morning. I mean, it was a waste of time to go out there at first light, at least for us. You know, Peaked Hill, different story. You know, but the bay, it was always like afternoon, midday. Now it could be first light, it could be end of the day, it could be at night, it could be any time. You know, we had bites all throughout the day over the past few years. I have noticed that, I guess the one thing I've noticed is that there are more fish in the bay than ever over the past couple of years. I've seen a bigger concentration. I think maybe that's partly due to the instinctual memory of that body of fish that keeps coming back, you know, and that body of fish is growing. And I think those are resident fish. I think because a lot of them were the same size class fish the whole time. It wasn't like we were seeing a batch of like 85 inches in the bay for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden the 100 inches would show. It was always that batch of bigger fish. Yeah, you might get a 95, 98 inch fish in there mixed in, but most of them were big. But I did notice a trend of the fish moving kind of away from Wood End and out towards the middle this past season.
Yeah.
Because Wood End's always been good. We've always done well in Wood End, and unfortunately, everyone else knows about Wood End, and so it's a tough place sometimes when you get 60, 70 boats all trying to fish Wood End, and then you get the Provincetown Ferry whipping through there.
Yep.
But the ledge a little different; it's a little more spread out. So I have noticed there's over the past few years there's a shitload of those little bonita in the bay, some max too, but not a huge concentration of bait, just scattered random, patches of bait. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like the bank where you mark clouds,
right?
Condensed clouds. In the bay, it's just mud. There's really no structure. I do have numbers, and Nick, fished with me, and actually, I'm trying to think who was mating for me when it was Maddie and Billy. So we had a season out there where we actually did have numbers, and I don't know what was holding the fish there, but we were getting a bite every single trip.
Just on their path.
Just probably on their path.
Yeah.
They would come through, and it was always in the mid-morning to latter part of the day. Like we'd get there in the dark, never got a bite early morning. So I think it was like a migratory thing where they were. I mean, the old timers always. I remember talking to Bobby Sampson. I wrote an article for Big Game magazine like 15 years ago about the history of Cape Cod Bay and how it evolved and how it used to be a big harpoon spot. And Bobby said, the fish go in there, and I remember him saying it was like it's a senior citizen, it's like a retirement home for a lot of big fish in the New England area. They go in the bay and they do loops.
Yeah.
They just do circles, and they're right on that edge, and you can look at it like one of those Capt and Seagull charts and see all the fishy spots, and they're all right along that same 80-foot, 100-foot edge, like right off the shoals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about bait tricks for the bay? I mean, you coming from where you keep the boat most of the time, you guys have good access to Pogies and Bluefish, and you have that advantage for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Bluefish is big.
Yeah.
Bluefish are great baits in the bay, I've found. The only problem with the bluefish is, it's not really a good down rod bait. I find the bluefish don't like the colder temperatures, and you leave them down there too long and they come up stiff as a board.
Yeah.
But anyways, bluefish kite bait, it's a no-brainer in the bay. It's probably my go-to. I mean, I wish I was rolling footage. I was out there with Nick and Anders. And a real good client of mine who brought his niece, and I actually posted a video of her the other day on Instagram in the chair. But man, we had a bluefish on a kite, and it was like little candy, little 4-pounder.
4-pounder. Oh god!
And that thing was just trucking along the surface. I remember like Anders was like sending it, and the thing was like just flying, and I'm like, wow, that thing's lively. And it was like 20 feet from the boat, and like an 800-pounder just came flying out, missed it, but like launched. It was like a pilot wheel, just launching.
There's nothing better than that.
Oh my God, it was the sickest kite bite I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then another one came up. Nick went to the rod and like literally put it in free spool just in time. Another one came up and just like sliced it.
Yeah.
Gone. But that's what I love about the bay. The bank, I feel like it's busy. I don't know how you guys do with kites on the bank, but I feel like it's more of a down rod place.
It is, especially when it's, the biomass of bait is herring.
Yeah.
Right. But there's
it's like year to year.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get a lot more kite bites on the eastern side of the bank.
Yeah,
sure.
I believe that.
And when there's a lot of mackerel around in general.
Yeah. Early year we get kite bites.
It's kind of one of those things. It's not that we don't want to fish the kite. Like I would love to fish the kite all the time, but we're anchored 95% of the time.
Right.
So it's
always in the wet.
You don't want to ruin your down rod.
And the tide is
presentation
huge out in the bank too.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's right. You need the tide going a certain way.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're drifting there, or like to Taylor's point, when we're up on like the shoal water, like more towards the eastern side, we'll fish it more. Fish it in the bay, as long as we have enough wind, we fish it every single time we're in the bay. But yeah, I don't think
we always get a bite when the kite's out. Every single time.
Yeah.
It's just not on the kite.
Exactly.
I remember seeing you guys when you were fishing with your dad, like this back when Johnny and Scotty were fishing with me, and it was always like east of the bank. It was always like out in like that 300-foot mark,
Yeah.
and there were fish out there, and it was all kite bites, and it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah, it's sick fishing out there.
it was great fishing out there, and it literally, you just run until you see the birds, and it was like, there we go, low flying shearwaters.
Yeah.
It's like 2009, 10, and 11. It was like the perfect charter
Yes.
fishing.
Yeah.
Pogies, high pogies on the kite. All the
Yep.
fish are like 60 to 75 inches.
Exactly.
Yep.
Absolutely
I
perfect.
miss those days.
Really.
Actually, another Galvin story was we were fishing out there with a kite, and Johnny, would either be asleep, while we were waiting for a bite, he would either be sleeping or he'd be down in the head. So Johnny goes down below. He's like, I gotta go. I'm not even gonna say what he said. So he goes down, and we're all staring out at the kite bait, and the kite bait gets blasted, right? So we're like, everybody's scrambling, and I'm like, Johnny. I gotta hand it to Johnny though. Johnny came up there like a fireman. He was like, his grunnins were like still down on his ankles, pants were like on his knees.
We paused this episode for a quick announcement for one of our good friends and fellow charter captains, Jesse Martello. Jesse's son, Jesse Jr., was recently diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia called T-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And while the outlook for Jesse is optimistic, the battle is just beginning. The doctor's initial prognosis indicates that Jesse Jr. is in for a fight that could last 3 years, with chemotherapy and many hospital visits, during which should be the prime years of his youth. And Jesse's an avid fisherman. He mates regularly for his dad and their charter business, Think Big Charters, aboard their boat Necessary Expense. They fish from Connecticut to the Northeast Canyons. They tuna fish. They're a part of our community, and they're great people. Jesse Jr. also enjoys playing soccer, basketball, lacrosse. He races go-karts. He skis, he snowmobiles. It's really sad that he has to deal with this at this point in his life, but we're here to support Jesse, and we're hoping that you all can take a moment and help support him as well. Right now, Jesse's family faces uncertainty with medical costs and other financial burdens associated with treating this disease. And to help ease the burden, there's been a website that's been set up to help facilitate fundraising efforts and help aid Jesse Jr.'s family and the entire Martello family with expenses that they're going to face during this battle. So if you take a moment and visit thinkbigjesse.com, that's thinkbigjesse.com. Starting on February 15th, there's going to be a series of raffles and auctions for some really great items and some charters, Penn and Real Easy custom rods. They're donating reels, rods. There's many other sponsors and supporters on there, many of which have sponsored and supported the podcast as well. And we just hope you take a moment to go on the website and support a great cause for a great kid. So again, visit thinkbigjesse.com and feel free to donate and participate in any of the raffles and the silent auctions.
So we were talking about
Galvin had his pants halfway up his ankles.
So this is a good Johnny Galvin story. So yeah, just to recap, we were fishing out east of the bank. It was like, 2008, 2009 era. And we were kite fishing, and we were fishing a live pogie. And the fish, so Johnny was like, yeah, I got to go down to use the bathroom. I'll be back, whatever. And we hook up. And so everybody's scrambling, and I'm like, where the fuck's Galvin? Oh, yeah, he's down in the head. So I'm like stamping my foot. I'm like, Johnny! So, I mean, Johnny comes flying around the corner, like literally like a fireman. Like he's like he just slid down the pole, and he's fucking running to save lives. And he's got his grunnins like around his ankles. His pants are probably like on his knees. And he's literally like you can imagine like a hairy Chewbacca running by you with grunnins around his ankles. Like literally was on the rod in probably 3 seconds. And again, that's another thing I wish I had on film. He's like nudging charter clients out of the way.
That's amazing.
But yeah,
amazing.
But those were good times back then when those fish were out east.
Oh, it really
East of the
was.
Bank.
Technical question. Now we're on the live bait bluefin track here.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot about this at the seminar in March, reading through the set list and schedule. How often are you bridling baits when you're fishing pogies and bluefish? Always?
50% of the time.
50%.
So when we're kite fishing, I usually just put the hook right in the meat. But when we're like drifting like a live bait, we always bridle, especially pogies. I know some guys don't, and they swear by it. I just think it's a better presentation, the bridle. It allows the bait to just swim more naturally, especially in a drift, like a high drift situation. Because, the pulling pressures on a bridle is at the front, almost like off the edge of the nose. Whereas if you hook in the shoulders, the fish, after a while, the bait gets tired. It's going to end up spinning or pulling sideways, or you know what I mean. It's just whereas a bridle, even if the bait's exhausted, because let's face it, after a pogie can only. Pogies are like Fort Knox. They're strong, little fish, but I feel like after a while, they get tired, and then that's when the presentation starts to.
They start to kind of lay on their side eventually.
Yeah. They do. Yep. They do.
I think that's tough to get a bite when they're on their side.
Yeah.
Very tough to get a bite. I feel like the fish know it. They can sense something's up. But anyways, we like to bridle pogies, and especially whiting too. Herring, it depends. I've caught just as many fish not bridling herring. I don't know what you guys. I know you guys fish herring all the time.
Yeah, we hook herring.
We never bridle them.
Yeah.
Even we just won't fish them in super high current situations.
We'll
Peak
put on
tide or
mackerel.
whatever else. We'll just fish a mackerel until the tide slows down, then save our herring for prime time. But we never bridle them. And for us, it's more of a hiding the hook thing, I think.
Yeah.
So soft too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I've always wanted to troll a herring, like a dead herring.
I would love
Yeah.
to.
Because they when you notice how when you're reeling them in, if they are dead, they're always wagging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like put a little egg sinker in there, and
Have you tried it? Have you ever tried rigging one?
I've screwed around with it. I've never committed to it though.
Yeah.
I've always been like afraid.
Imagine that on a planer.
That's what I
going
was just
slow.
gonna say.
The only thing I wonder is how it would hold up after like 15 or 20 minutes. You know, like a mac, you can brine the shit out of it and kosher salt it and they'll last for hours. Where a herring, I don't know. When I first got the idea, I was fishing the canal back, when I was a kid, and with live herring, and my herring was pretty much dead at this point. And I remember reeling it in against the current. The thing was just like beautifully swimming, on its side, but just like wagging away. And I'm like, oh my God, that thing looks heavenly.
Yeah.
That's what gave me the idea. And I think I ate a piece.
Yeah, we got to try that next year.
Yeah.
It's something
sure.
I've always wanted to try.
Just have
I know guys have caught them on mullet, and that's
those things
older.
are just so hardy though.
That's what I mean.
They have, like,
it
gator
looks
skin.
so
Mullet, you mean the mullet?
so
Yeah.
close
Oh, yeah.
to a herring. It's like, why wouldn't they eat mullet?
So I've
regularly?
tried mullet. I've tried mullet out there a lot. Back in the BB buoy days when we used to fish out at Chatham all the time, I've used to troll mullet. I know Frank Pitton got a fish on a mullet with Ed Lavelle back in the day. I've tried them, and they used to call it like a Nova Scotia rig. It was like a daisy chain of mullet with like a swimmer at the end with an egg sinker. I just never got bites on it. I fished mullet at the canyons. They swim awesome. I've had them in the wash, and I'm like, how can that not get eaten? But the fish would rather come up and eat a stupid cedar plug.
Or a ballyhoo, which isn't that much different looking from the bottom,
I know. I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe
weird.
Maybe just because we don't have mullet up here. Although I will say, one time I was with Galvin, and it was before we were doing a Georges trip, and we were in Falmouth Harbor fueling up, and there was a giant school of mullet in Falmouth Harbor.
Strange.
And Johnny and I, neither of us really knew how to throw a cast net. And so we were like, so he was like standing on one part of the dock, I was standing on the other, and we did the 2-man cast. Literally, like it was bad. And we were like 1, 2, and like the thing landed right in the middle of the school, and we could have caught probably 500, and we ended up with like 20.
Yeah.
But they went right in the live well. Brought them to George's, didn't get a bite on them, but
That's
It's
awesome.
nice to have mullet in the live well, though. I was
that's
so
cool.
excited. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see more and more
Weird
different weird
stuff.
species of fish year after year.
Yeah, every year we get like more tropical fish.
Rudder
You
was
hear,
it
like,
rudder fish we had under the boat a lot on the bank this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Those
Yep.
black and white.
Yeah.
The black and white ones you're talking about,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yep. Little different species of jacks we've had in the harbor. Trying to do what you're saying, like holding the cast net between two finger piers and like
Yeah, they look like
Drop
it's
it
like
on
a
top of 'em.
mix between
Where's John Boonar when you need him?
yeah, exactly.
it's like a mix between a jack and a smelt.
Yeah,
It's weird.
yeah. No, definitely starting to see some different species in our waters.
People are
that's for
catching
sure.
like cobia,
Spanish mackerel.
Spanish Max, tons of Spanish Max this year in Buzzards Bay. There were like a shitload. Yeah.
One of those on the planer, man. A small one of those.
That's
things.
a great skip bait.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite baits to put on like a teaser. In fact, Johnny Galvin's going to be doing a rigging workshop at the seminar this year on like rigging Spanish and like how to add natural bait to a
Nice.
daisy chain.
That's cool.
Because that makes a huge difference. Those fish come up on that, and if there's like a piece of actual real meat in there, they'll follow that thing and stay on it and chew on it for however long it takes.
Let's talk more about the seminar.
Yeah, that's a good transition. We have a couple topics that we're looking forward to listening to while we're there. So it's March 5th and 6th.
Yep, March 5th and 6th. If anyone doesn't have tickets, they can get them online at the seminar website, which is castafari.com/fishing-seminar. Or you can just go to castafari.com and just click on the left. You just click fishing seminar.
So you have two main rooms this year, which is different from years past.
No, same thing.
Same thing.
We have one main room, which is like the double screen ballroom with two projectors and one podium, and then we have another room that holds about 150 people that has a stage and
Got it.
a screen as well.
Nice.
So yeah, the big rooms for like the topics that we think are going to pull maybe 200 plus people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you like for topics?
I'm excited to hear Archie Joe's talk.
Me too.
Me too.
Me too.
Honestly, he's
Yep.
a legend.
He's a
And I haven't met him yet. We've exchanged a few words online, and he seems like a great guy. But I'm really excited to meet Archie.
Archie's like the godfather of tuna fishing.
Yeah.
He's been around, and not just tuna, swordfish, everything. He is one of the few people I know who have actually seen this fishery completely evolve. I've seen it evolve. Archie's seen it completely evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's fished days when it was cloth line. There was no monofilament. That's and my great uncle was like that. He was a big saltwater, big game guy. But Archie's going to kind of talk about the evolution of how things have changed and progressed, and what tricks are still around today that were around 50 years ago.
Yeah.
There's definitely stuff that can be applied back, that was around back then to now.
That's what I'm excited to hear. Some of the old school stuff. Just bring it back to baseline. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things that he's seen that he's probably forgotten. He's forgotten more than has evolved in the last 10 years,
Oh yeah, but you know what? I mean, I talk to him pretty regularly lately just to get ready for the seminar, and he's a world class guy, like a really sweet guy. He kind of give you the shirt off his back kind of guy, and he loves to tell stories because he has stories. I mean, you think about it. The guy pretty much lived on the water for 50 years, and I would love to get him in a room and just take notes and actually write one of his stories.
Yeah.
Like Linda Greenlaw did that. She incorporated a bunch of Archie's stories in her books.
That's so
and
cool.
there's some really cool stuff. Yeah, I mean he's got some crazy stories. But yeah, he'll be there, and I'm hoping to get him in the rigging workshops too. I told him about him, and he's like, yeah, well, go hang out. I'm sure he'll get his hands dirty.
Rig some cool swordfish baits.
Yeah.
Be awesome.
He taught Tommy a lot.
Yeah.
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 Oh yeah, Tommy learned a lot from Archie.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, you're traveling soon, but you've fished a lot of different places. I'm excited to hear about you and Jack talk about, fishing globally, basically, hot
Yeah.
spots and all that. I think that'll be a
should
really
fun
good
one.
topic.
That should be a fun one. Yeah, I'm not sure what Jack's gonna talk about, but I'm gonna talk about the Galapagos, Panama, Colombia, Mexico, and I think that's it. Those 4. I feel like there was a 5th one. I can't think of it offhand. But Colombia, I've never been to. I'm going next week. Actually, this week. What am I thinking? I'm leaving Wednesday. So that'll be interesting. Where I'm going is basically just south of where I was in Panama. It's like 50 miles south of where the Tropic Star Lodge is.
Gotcha.
And I was fishing like a little north of Tropic Star. So it's generally the same, area. It's just that Colombia isn't overfished. Like Panama, I feel like has gotten hammered by long lining, and commercial fishing. A lot of the long lines and even like the commercial boats that are doing like buoy fishing and stuff out on the shoals, like out on Hannibal Bank area. There's still plenty of fish there, but there's definitely a lot more pressure than there used to be. But Colombia, from what I hear, is kind of untouched.
So how did you pick Colombia? You have a friend there, or just decided?
Just a buddy of mine who I'm going with, my buddy Scott, called me up one day. He's like, check this out. It's a lodge called Fish Colombia. And I started talking to the guy, Alberto, who owns the lodge, and he's a really nice guy. He speaks good English. And he has a partner, this guy Simon. They both speak good English, which is nice because the language barrier is always tough.
Yeah.
Especially like when I was fishing the Galapagos, those guys couldn't speak a word of English, and it was like charades because I can't speak Spanish, which is kind of pathetic. Because I've been fishing in Central America for like 25 years, and I can't speak Spanish. It's like stupid. And so I've been going online and learning like donde, like where, and chucha, and like all the swear words.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
But no, it should be good, man. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. You basically fly into Medellin and then take a prop plane to I forget the town over on the Pacific. It's basically the northwest, Pacific side of Colombia. And then we're basically in the jungle, like the lodge is in the jungle, and they have tarpon there. They have big tarpon in the jungle, and I was, they have big snook too. And all these fish came through the canal. How crazy is that?
That is wild.
That whole population of tarpon and snook that they have in the Pacific, it was basically man-made. Wow. They swam through the ditch, and there's some big snook. They get like 30 pounders. So we'll be doing a little of that. And maybe some tarpon fishing. It's really not it's not in prime time for tarpon. I guess they're offshore down the beach a little ways, most of them. But I'd love to catch a tarpon out there.
That's cool.
What do you look for in a destination fishing trip? Like what gets you jazzed up to go somewhere to fish?
I'll be honest, lately I've been into the casting, a tuna game. I love popping for tuna. Jigging form's fun too, but it's not the same. Just to see those strikes, the top water action, and just to feel the power and the energy of just getting, destroyed by a big yellowfin, by a big tuna on the surface. There's something about that you can't, it's hard to put into words, but there's just, I love that game, and I'm still learning. I'm still finding my way, even though I've been doing it for years. I feel like technology is just racing in that direction. The gear that's out there. Like Jack's going to have a talk at the seminar about, the modern advances to like the jigging and popping game and like what's out there now for tools for us to use. Like Shimano's been really cutting edge with their rods. They have this grappler rod now that I use down in Mexico that the thing's like Fort Knox, and it's still got good action. You can cast a plug a mile. And so, yeah, I do like that topwater game. That's probably my favorite, even over blue marlin fishing.
Wow.
Traveling.
Yeah.
Traveling.
Yeah.
And guys do the casting game up in the canyons now. I mean, you can't really do it from my boat, although I've run into the bow a couple times. I'm not going to lie, but it's like a skating rink up there, man.
Yeah.
It's hairy. But no, it's just the casting game in general has, I think about how long, how that's evolved. I mean, I remember, fishing the bank when I just moved from Green Harbor to the Cape. This was like early 2000s. it was like the beginning of that whole era. If you guys remember, because you were fishing with your dad, it was like all these fish on top eating like sand eels, and like people started casting, and then the next thing you know, you saw a story online about a guy who hooked one on a Hopkins and got spooled, and you know, and next thing you know, other people were trying it, and it's like, and then the tackle industry was like, holy shit, like we're onto something here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now it's evolved to guys getting 500 pounders on spinning gear in an hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's wild.
It's
I'm
crazy.
all set though.
Yeah, I'm still all set with that.
You know,
I don't even like catching 15-pound blackfin on spinning rods.
I'll be honest with you. There's a certain kind of like, I think the perfect size for a spinner rod is like, 100 pounds. I've always wanted to catch a super cow. I caught a fish in Mexico on a long range boat, and it's tough fishing from the long range boats because they don't move. The boats don't move around. It's like you hook a fish, and everyone there is like, good luck. Like I'm not pulling in my lines. And, we got 10 kite baits and balloons and everything else. So I did get a big yellowfin like a few years ago. I got a 180-pound fish, which just got really lucky. It was like the first cast too. We were drifting through a surface feed, and the fish had gone down, and the captain was like, if you hook that fish, if you hook a fish, man, you got to go to the bow, and that's it. You're staying. I'm like, okay. Sure enough, boom. It was a pretty epic hit. But anyways, I hooked another one that Mexican trip I did to Puerto Vallarta after I did a podcast with you guys. I hooked a monster, like a 300-pounder. And we all saw it. Like Larry was sitting next to me and George. We were all just like, actually, the chef was like, time to eat, everybody. And I was like, literally like, one more cast, famous last words. And I casted, and it was like 2 pops in, and then this friggin' super cow comes up. Oh, man. And just crushes the popper. And I was like, I remember being like, fuck. And the reason why I was like fuck is because I'm gonna lose my favorite popper. It was like this favorite popper, another superstitious like thing that had been through so many battles with me. I had taken it like to 5 different like places around the world and caught like a ridiculous amount of tuna on this thing. Changed hooks probably 20 times. Wow. This popper was like just annihilated.
What kind of popper is it?
It was a strategic angler. It wasn't even like a high-end popper.
Yeah.
And but man, those things have great action, and they're reasonable. They're like $25 plug. Long story short, though, I hooked this fish, and the captain was like right behind me. Roberto was like, he's like, go to the bow, and I heard them all screaming like nervous Spanish, and the next thing you know, I see all the kites and balloons like starting to move. And I'm like, holy shit, we're in gear. Because I was getting dumped. Like the fish hit and it took a wicked run and I was getting spooled. Captain saw that and he was like, let's go. And boom, next thing you know, we're in gear. And now I'm in this like, 62-foot, it was no tuna, no chinga, 62-foot delta. And like we're going by this long range boat on our right. I think it was the XL. And you could see the guys all like, what the fuck?
Guy in the bow.
And there's like balloons, kites bobbing, slamming into each other like behind. And there's a guy on the bow like, and all I was doing was getting slack line, like thinking I was going to get back in the game, right? And then we get straight up and down on this fish, and I'd be like, all right, neutral. Again, it would have been nice to know Spanish. It was like hand signals. It's like I was in driving school. So like I get over the friggin' fish and like. And it was like the fish would feel like one bit of pressure, and it would just, the head shakes were just like massive, violent, like, and then just, and it would just dump the reel again, and we'd chase down the fish for another like 5 minutes, and I'd be doing this, and we did this for an hour and a half, and I would finally get straight up and down on the fish. And Larry's chirping in my ear. He's like, you're never going to catch that fish, David. You're never going to catch that
That's a good
fish.
Larry impression.
I mean, literally.
Exactly like Larry.
I literally, he's just like, why don't you just give it up? Or dinner's getting cold. Like, literally, this is what I had to deal with. So not only did I have like my lower back feeling like it was going to explode and my body was creaking like a barn door, I had Larry chirping in my ear like, you're not going to get the fish. And I was straight up and down on the thing for like, 15 minutes. And I thought maybe I was going to get like an inch at a time. But it was so hard to gain line. It was almost like a dead still. Like the sheer weight of the fish had bottomed out. I was using a Shimano Osea, which is an awesome 2-piece casting rod, but just a little outmatched for a 300-pound yellowfin. But anyways, long story short, I put an exorbitant amount of heat on it, and I broke the braid. I had 80-pound Suffolk's braid, which probably breaks at like 110.
Yeah.
And, I broke the braid probably like 50 feet down, and the fish was probably like, 200 feet down.
Wow.
So, it is what it is. It was heartbreaking, but part of me was relieved. I was like, all right, well, that was fun. We got the bite, whatever. But I would love to catch, and they've done it. They've had guys on that same boat on No Tuna, No Chinga. I feel like they got excited by that, and they started bringing a panga. And we did that this past year.
That's badass.
Dude, get on that thing. Like
Get on that
ride.
thing. And that's what you need. You need to be on the panga to do it. And they towed the panga out, and a guy got a big fish. It was like a 305 on a popper.
Wow.
And I was so jealous. I was like, I wanted to be that guy, and I think there's been probably several people who have done it, Not a lot. I mean, it's not a yellowfin. And the thing is, I know these big bluefin up here are mean and nasty, but like a 300-pound yellowfin and a 300-pound bluefin, it's just like two different animals. Like the yellowfin are just so friggin' strong. And that's the other thing, they're super old. Like that 300-pound yellowfin's been around. It's not it's a smart fish that it's probably, I'm guessing, it's been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
But
That's
anyways,
wild.
Not to get off on a tangent.
No, we love tangents. We love tangents. That's awesome though. So yeah, I mean, as far as seminar topics, those are really the two that we were eyeballing for sure.
Yeah. No, it should be a good show. We have a lot of stuff that we've done in the past, but then we got some, a lot of new stuff. I think the deep dropping, but keeping it IGFA, Tommy and Mark DeCabia both are going to talk about it. I think that's going to be a good one because a lot of guys are getting tuna down deep during the day too.
Yeah.
We've caught several big eye. When I was fishing with Anders on charters, we've caught, fish that we thought were swordfish right up until the end.
Wow.
And ended up being big eye. I think that's happened like 5 or 6 times. And I know we're not the only ones. I know a lot of guys are. I mean, I know Larry's caught fish, daytiming as well. Mm-hmm. And Mark actually has done it like targeting tuna. So Mark's going to kind of talk about like focusing on, tuna fish, especially when like the daytime bite, dies and maybe you're not interested in catching billfish or you're marking fish down deep at 5, 6, 7, 800 feet. This is a whole new kind of thing, how to target them.
Yeah.
So that should be a good talk. They're going to be doing that in the main room. And then we're going to talk about bridling baits. I don't know if you've ever tried Ray Rocher's bridling kits, the R&R tackle ones. They're plastic needles, but they're these little elastic bands. So instead of using floss, you just pop the band through, and kind of like what we do with a bluefish, like, put the band through the eye socket and put the hook in between both loops and twist it. And, Ray's stuff that was for little small, stuff like pogies and herring. And it actually would work great on a herring. I haven't tried it on a herring yet, but so we'll have a workshop for that. So, we get a bunch of new stuff too. We try to keep it fresh.
Even some of the, the repeat topics, things evolve so much year to year. And you start to get better statistics on things too.
Yep. But yeah.
All right.
We back?
Where were we?
We were still seminar talking.
So we got some good topics on this year's event. The snooter device, how to build one, or just, you're better off just buying it. But my buddy Aaron Briggs actually makes them. He designed this one that we use, and it works great. It's basically a lasso device that you just put on the bill of the fish and cinch down, and now you have a gaff without the hook, and you're just controlling the fish's bill. And it's nice because you can control that forward momentum,
right?
Which really helps. I think it would work too with swordfish, just on the releases.
Yeah. You can keep them more upright with it as well. And like you were saying with that big blue marlin story, the thing's so wide, it's so hard to hold the dorsal and keep the fish upright. With the snooter.
Right.
You have a lot more control.
Now you have a reach.
Exactly.
And we, I got a teak transom, so it's like, teak transom's in the equation. You've heard
watch the transom on your videos hundreds of times.
Yeah. I think like my mates have nightmares. They wake up in a cold sweat, like, and all they hear is transom.
I heard Damon yelling at me about the transom again.
Yeah. No,
that's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, because one little nick is like $1,000.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I'm actually clear coating the transom this year. I'm having a guy come down and do it, put the all care on it. It's just, you can never be too careful. And not just teak transom, any boat, fiberglass, whatever paint, you know, a swordfish bill, they're even worse than marlin. Like all it takes is one little swipe, just one little brush, and now you got a huge gouge. I mean, those things are super sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about tournaments? Just doing the single tournament this year?
So we're gonna fish the tri-state,
Yep.
and we'll fish the big game battle. I couldn't fish it last year because I do a family outing in Block Island every year, and we rent a house, and they had changed their dates last year, so we had to sit that one out. But that's a fun event, you know. It's more like we just do it for fun and catch up with everybody, and then my tournament. I wish I could fish my tournament. This year, my tournament, the Oak Bluffs Blue Water Classic, is partnering up with the SFC, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's it's kind of like a PGA Tour of sport fishing tournaments. There's 12 events, and I think they start sometime in like early summer. It might even be late May. And it's basically events that run from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to, I'm the furthest north event.
Wow.
And they're trying to start an event in Montauk, and then the tri-state's going to be involved. I don't think this year because the dates don't line up, because so what they're doing is, in a nutshell, they're going to be filming all of the events, and it's going to be broadcasted live on CBS every Saturday morning at I think 11 a.m. There's going to be a 2-hour broadcast of each event. And so there'll be a whole series. So the show is going to basically be kind of like, I don't know if you guys have seen the Bassmasters. I'm sure you have on ESPN.
Right.
They're using that studio. So they're kind of taking that template and applying it to saltwater fishing. So they're trying to boil down. I mean, it's a big project. They're trying to boil down a 4-day tournament into a 2-hour, football game, if you will. So they're going to have pre-production and studios. They're going to have live feeds they have technology now to take live feeds from like a boat's satellite antenna. They have these antennas that they're going to install on a few boats in each tournament and get live feeds. So Rob Carmichael could be out on his boat at Hydrographer Canyon and be broadcasting live into the show, into the studio that's going to be down in Florida. So they'll have a lot of on-site filming. So it should be exciting. It's going to hopefully take the event to another level. Hopefully get some outside participation, maybe get some boats in that wouldn't normally fish this event coming in from out of town. There's a $2 million prize. I mean, it's no joke. It's, and that's just for the, most billfish points. Then there's all kinds of, side bets. And again, there's no Calcuttas. It's just, it doesn't cost boats anything to enter either. It's all from, their own, in-house investments and investors and companies that are involved. So they're basically trying to get people to say, yeah, we'll do it. We'll fish. And I guess you got to fish a minimum of 3 out of the 12 events is how it works. Gotcha. So, I'm hoping that we get guys, from the south to come up and fish. But it's nice that the tri-state will be involved next year, and then they're trying to get this Montauk tournament off the ground. So at least there's a Northeast division, if you will. Right. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this pans out.
That'll be cool.
That will be cool.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah, it is very different, and it's one of those things that I feel like if they weren't going to do it, somebody was going to do this. Yeah, especially, it's just amazing what you can do now with technology. Even to just do these podcasts, it's awesome. And you can, I can take my guitar and record a song in my living room on my cell phone. Just all the crap you can do now.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
it really is.
So to get satellite feeds from a boat, and get high quality video via satellite live to live TV is pretty insane.
That's going to be awesome. That's going to add a whole nother dynamic to that.
Yeah. Hopefully they can make it happen,
That'll be cool.
Yep.
That'll be cool.
So, but yeah, they'll be coming to the seminar, I think, and they're going to, talk to some people, answer some questions. But yeah, I can't believe that event's a month away.
It's nuts. Yeah, but people must be frothing for the seminar, considering we weren't able to have really anything in person for the last year and a half.
Yeah, we have a lot of ticket holders from 2020 who stayed in the game and saved some money, whatever. So I'm hoping that, and then there's a lot of people on the sidelines that are, because of COVID, they're watching to see what the curve does. I haven't even looked, to be honest with you, but I think it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Yeah.
And if you have to pivot, you pivot. I mean, you did it before, and everyone seemed to like the remote stuff as well. And
yeah, the remote stuff did okay. You guys did a great job on that stuff, and the remote stuff was a little pain in the ass, but yeah, we'll do whatever we got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to completely change topics for the end of this thing here, because I've been staring at this bottle of empty bottle.
I drank it on the way in. Yeah.
Yeah.
My way out of jail was going to be like, yes, officer, no, this isn't an empty container like from recent consumption. There's a piece of fluorocarbon in the middle there. See
there wasn't a worm. There was a piece of fluorocarbon in the bottom of the bottle.
Exactly.
So what's that all about?
So this is from a trip I did back in I feel like it was like 2010 or 11. It was the first year George's Bank. And this is interesting. Like, talk about the bluefin fishery evolving. People were running, a lot of people, not just me, people were running 150 miles to catch a bluefin tuna back in 2010. Now, the fishing was great out there. It was awesome. I mean, out of the hand, 3 fish a day, whatever. I mean, you could catch 11 fish if you wanted to. That's how good it was. And so we were out there with another fleet of, again, probably 60 boats are probably out there during this time frame. So I did a trip to George's, did a bunch, and I did one, it was in 2011. It was the year. The first year was great. The second year was good, not like the first year. But we did a trip. There were fish locally, and I remember I was in the bay. I had my friend Eric Budenhagen, we call him Buddha. He's a client of mine that has become good friends. We've become really good friends over the years. It was him and this other guy, Mike Story. I had Maddie Smalley as my mate, and I think it was just Maddie, and then it was myself. So it was a small group. We were in the bay, and we were actually fishing on the numbers that we were talking about earlier, where I had Billy, and we were fishing out there in the mud, and we had this spot. I don't know why the fish were always there. Probably, like you said, they were going through. Long story short, though, it was dead. We fished there all day, and then I started getting texts, and Willie Hatch texted me. He was on his way in with 3, and he's like, "It's on fire." I'm like, oh. I look at the weather. The weather did not look great. It was like picking up northeast like the following afternoon. So I was like, if we leave now, we could catch 3 fish and then be on our way. Yeah. So anyways, I rush into P-Town Harbor. I get a fuel truck to come down. It was like 8 o'clock at night, and we fuel up and off we go. We get to George's in the dark, and there was a small fleet. It was like a skeleton fleet of like all commercial guys. I was the only, idiot sporty out there, so anyways, we're out there, and we put our lines in. It was way eastern part of the bank. So I don't know, have you guys ever fished George's? It's like right near the Hague line.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We have not been there though.
It's in the middle. It's like you go through, like, honestly, on the way out, unless you're going in the dark, you don't really see it. But on the way out if there's daylight around, you go through like 4 different weather systems. I feel like you go through different dimensions. That's how far away it is. The water changes. Flat calm ocean for like 3 hours, and all of a sudden it's like, you're in like 4 to 6s, and then it's calm again, and then the sky changes. I mean, it's literally, I think it's 135 miles from P-Town. So we get out there and we start fishing, and the wind starts to pick up a little bit. I remember we hooked this fish, and we had to back through like. It was like 3 boats were in tight because people were marking bait or whatever, and so I had to have these guys move out of my way, which they weren't happy about. We're backing down, and then I look at my chart plotter if that wasn't bad enough, because you know how stressful it is when you have to have people move, and you're like hoping they'll move, for one, and then 2, and these guys like moved like 5 feet, And it was literally like we could have been like, hello, without even screaming. Could have handed them a coffee.
That's funny.
So we drive by, we're backing down, and then I start looking at my chart plotter, and I start zooming in, because we're right on the friggin' line, and right on the Hague line, and I zoom in, so far in that you start to see like those like
the little speck things on the chart.
I don't know what you call them.
The bird looking
little
thing.
Bird. I saw the birds, and I saw my track line, and then I saw the Hague line, which was now just like a dotted line, and we were like, I don't know, 100 yards. Well, the fish was definitely over the Hague line. There's no question about it. And you hear these stories about like, Linda Greenlaw ends up in jail and so-and-so got fined.
Yeah.
Because they do it. They have the jets come out and they get your numbers and whatever. So I was like, right away, I'm like, and I brought a screenshot of it just to show you guys. I don't know if it'll transmit through the video, but anyway, yeah, we were right on the Hague line and we fought this fish. And I remember like I had to stop the boat. I was like, all right, we're not backing down anymore. And because the fish just took one of those runs, it was one of those fish stayed on the surface, never went down. Those fucking fish like stayed up high. So I take it out of gear. We goose the drag a little bit because it wasn't really at that point. It was kind of slowing down anyway. And we finally get the fish to sound, but that fish was in Canada. There's no question about it. Fish was in Canadian waters. We were in the United States waters, and we're right on the Hague line. And it was just so funny because we never crossed. You can look at the track line, and it's like a little etch-a-sketch loop, and it goes
right up to
the line. It might even kiss the line, and just like a tennis ball stays in though, and then goes out.
You had your foot in bounds. You had the foot in bounds.
Had the foot in bounds. Exactly. Yeah. And so it was literally like, yeah, it was going to be like if the Coast Guard gave me shit, I was going to be like John McEnroe. I'd be like, you were fucking in! Throwing my fishing rod. So anyways, we ended up catching the fish, which was a great story, but Buddha brought a bottle of Patron, and the other thing was the fish when it came boat side was nasty. It wasn't a huge fish. It was like a 650 class fish, but we could not get it in range to throw the dart. It just was one of those stubborn fish that would circle, come up behind the boat about, 50 feet away, show its colors. I mean, you could see the fish it was literally like a barn door. And then it would sound and go too far down. Yep. And it would come up. And I said, Maddie, you're going to have to do it, man. And Maddie freaking did this Greek javelin launch of the poon. It was literally like 1/1000 to it literally, it was an awesome shot. And we ended up catching the fish. So we celebrated and we all hit the Patron. Of course, I was driving. I didn't touch it. But we put the piece of fluorocarbon.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah. That's awesome.
So that's
a great idea.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll show you the pic. I don't know if it'll come out or not, but it's kind of funny. I texted my buddy Mike and I was like, do you have that pic from 15 years ago?
That's awesome.
Let's see. So, yeah, he even sent
right up to this camera here. I'll see if I can.
I don't know if that.
Oh yeah, keep going a little further in.
Yeah.
Wow. I need to see that shot.
It's just like right there, right on the line.
Wow, dude.
That's sick.
So that was. I'm glad we don't have to do
That's
those runs
impressive,
anymore,
right?
though.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it, though. And it was the regular thing to do. Like if you wanted to catch a giant tuna, and your odds were better if you ran, 7 hours. Yeah. Actually, 7 hours for us. It was probably like some guys were running out there at 13 knots from Gloucester.
10, 12 knots.
Ugh.
Crazy. And now it's like, you could catch a fish off the beach.
Yeah. Yep. The way the Pogies have been and stuff, it's pretty wild where we've been catching them.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing those Pogies early season still? Those big giant schools?
We are.
Yeah. Last year it wasn't quite as crazy.
We had it was nuts for a couple of days, and then we had a weird weather system come through in early July. I want to say was last year when 4th of July was really overcast and rainy. Third,
I don't remember.
4th of July.
But I know what you're talking about. It was the next day the Pogies were
all gone.
Inshore.
We had them. They eventually worked their way up off Situate, and it was here we go. And then we had a big system come through and change everything.
Huh. Interesting.
But yeah, we have been seeing them. Back to your spinning rod 300-pounder story. We did that with a tuna fish in 20 feet of water off Humrock Beach.
With a Pogie?
With a Pogie. Bass
snagged.
Fish. Yeah.
Snagged the Pogie enough.
You were bass fishing.
Yeah.
We were kind of bass fishing.
We had 130s out because we saw tuna in the school. And then a school of bass came in and my wife was there. So we cast them and she got a 30-pound bass. And we were like, oh, let's just catch another one. We casted, hooked the Pogie, and
the thing got blasted.
The thing got blasted by a 500-pounder. And we chased it all the way out from 18 feet of water. We got out to about 80 feet. So we chased them
through bow riders,
miles.
everyone that was just hanging around the Pogies. All of a sudden, we're
all
going
the
10
lobster
knots
traps.
forward.
You know how many lobster traps are in
tons
there?
of gear. It's
Through
like
all that gear. We
force
got through
field of
all
gear.
of it. Didn't get tangled.
It was on like
Wow.
a 5 or 6,000 size spinning reel with like an ugly stick, like medium fast action spinning rod. We had him on for a good half hour, 40 minutes, and then the reel seized.
Oh,
And then we were actually, not that it was going to work, but we actually were able to make the transfer, cut and splice to a 130 with
Really?
40-pound leader. And then we like came tight in the 130 and like running down fast forward as far as we could, or as fast as we could. And then
Yeah, we had to slack.
we
off
actually
to
ended
tie
up
it.
chafing them off.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
And then even
That's
crazier.
Like, that's like pulling a hook after 3 hours.
Even-
That's horrible.
Even crazier, we're like 90% sure that fish was caught on Southwest Corner like 3 weeks later.
Oh, did someone have a fish that had a bunch of
because it broke in the braid.
2 mile
It broke
string
above
of
the
braid?
leader.
Yeah, it broke at the Alberto knot.
So our knot was there. I think there was a little bit of braid there. So it had our knot, our length, like our fluorocarbon, the same Pogie snagger we were using. Granted, there was a lot of guys that got broken off
Right.
that
sure.
like those few weeks, but like, you know, to have all those things lined up, it's pretty wild.
That's
it was
pretty
cool.
wild, man.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah.
That's
It
awesome.
was a lot of fun. It was a lot of
Well,
fun.
before these cameras overheat.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you
again
very
with
much.
us.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Always fun to hook up and do this.
Yeah, it's awesome to talk fishing in the wintertime with someone as equally obsessed with it as you are.
Yeah.
We're pumped for the seminar. We have some cool new stats and things to share during our presentation as well. So I
Awesome.
think people will. It's not the same old Stellwagen presentation that we do. We have some cool new stuff in there. We've been
Great.
filming a lot of bites, so we're going to try to integrate
I love
as much
the
video as possible.
stuff that you guys, that you film with the bites. That's great.
Yeah.
and I know the time and labor that goes into capturing those bites, those
Yes.
10-second moments of
Yeah.
joy.
Hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the one you guys posted the other day that was like, so tell me about the craziest thing. It was like mid debate. It was like mid like cerebral debate.
You know you're bored.
Yeah.
We lost a fish earlier in the morning, so everybody was heartbroken. So I was trying to lift their spirits. We lost like a 900-pounder at the boat after 2.5 hours. And that was later in the day. That was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I was like trying to...
I love the umbrella. It's like the beach umbrella.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So if people want to book a ticket or get tickets for the seminar, kind of bring us through all that.
Yeah, it's really easy. Just go to the easiest thing is to go to the Castafari website, just castafari.com. That's CASTAFARI.com. And then just click on there's a row of buttons on the top of the homepage. Just click seminar and then just go right there. You can check out the seminar, see who's speaking, when, but tickets can be purchased online. And we'll be selling tickets right up until the day before the event, but we will not be selling tickets at the event.
Okay.
Just because it's too crazy and too confusing. So just make sure if you guys do want to go, just to try to register ahead of time. And people get their tickets in the mail. If people want to check out the itinerary, you can go to the seminar Facebook page as well. If you go on Facebook, if you have Facebook, just do Castafari Seminar.
Pop up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much again.
Yeah.
Thanks for
having
being
me.
our first repeat guest. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Glad.
A lot of
happy
good
to do it.
feedback from the first one. We'll have to eventually get Galvin, Turbo, a few more months.
Yeah, let's get the
Sit
band
down
back
and have
together.
a couple beers and do one of these. So
Yeah, that would be fun.
thanks again.
Yeah.
We're just going to end it real quick on our dad's 3 words of fishing wisdom. Remember, you can't catch them if you don't have a hook in the water. Always trust your instincts. And the last one, you'll just have to keep listening. Stay tight, everybody. Thanks again, Damon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the SeaBros Fishing Podcast. If you would like more information about today's guest, our episode, and show sponsors, or if you want to order hats and apparel, please visit our website at SeaBrosFishing.com. You can also stay up to date on all the latest SeaBros Fishing content and podcast episodes by following us on Instagram at SeaBros Fishing. Finally, to book a trip with us through our family-run charter fishing company, please visit massbayguides.com or see our latest updates and fishing reports by following Mass Bay Guides on Instagram and Facebook.